right, good evening, folks. Let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Everyone is in attendance. First order of business, I'd actually like to make a motion to change the agenda. Sorry. I would like to move 4C into the number 2 slot, so make it 4B. So Rosedale infill will be second on the agenda list this evening, should it get approved. Should my motion get approved? Do I have a second?
Second.
There we go. All right, all those in favor of the agenda change? Any opposed? All right, seeing none, thank you. Next, let's consider the approval of the October 22nd, 2024 regular meeting minutes.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the October Planning Board meeting minutes. I didn't get the date, sorry. October 22nd, 24 Planning Board meeting.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion, I have a second. There is actually one correction that I see that needs to be made, and it just has to do with who was present. It would be the gentleman sitting to your right that is no longer. So that is all. Everything else. I think he was present. He just wasn't up here. So, Chris, are you okay with that change? Okay. And Lee, you're good? Okay. All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? All right, thank you. All right, next up, get my paperwork in order. Next up, public comments. And let me make sure you're excited, Mr. Richards. Let's do public comments first, maybe. All right.
Just get my stuff out of the way.
Okay, and let me just review these real quick, make sure I'm in the correct order. Three minutes. Okay. All right, so we'll go in the order of the agenda. And so, let's see, that means the first one I have in my hand, this would be regarding rezoning 24-09. This would be Brittany Duncan. Brittany? Hi there. Once you come up to the podium, say your name for the public record, and then you'll have 3 minutes to speak.
Hi, I'm Brittany Duncan. It's been a while since I addressed a zoning topic. The last time it was R20-03. I'm sure y'all remember that one time that guy labeled us whiskey bent and hellbound. That was a heartbreaking loss, and I'd be lying if I said I ever really got over it. I want to talk tonight about R2409. I was born and raised right behind Huntersville Elementary School, and now I'm blessed to be able to be raising my own family here. It makes me really sad when I drive downtown to see these once beautiful houses just not maintained, overgrown with vines and weeds, and clearly uncared for. I don't understand. Ever since there was a hint of a red line, the properties in our downtown never developed, they just sat. On its surface, R2409 sounds like a good idea. Let's get downtown jumping, but that's all it is, it's superficial. The petition is not even the low-hanging fruit. Approving R2409 does not mean that property owners will suddenly jump into action. Instead, they may continue to sit on their property. Nothing in their application suggests otherwise. Maybe they want to sell, and this gets them a higher selling value. Don't reward property owners of downtown deteriorating houses for doing nothing but asking you to. With a pen stroke, you will increase their property value. So when staff tells you that this is all about bringing mom and pop developers, you would actually be discouraging mom and pop developers. As with R2409, you increase that property value before those developers ever show up. Only one of these property owners inherited their home 20 years ago. They don't live here. 2 of the properties were recently purchased by people from out of town who have chosen to leave these properties vacant since they bought them. Your staff has already said one of them is in disrepair, but it was purchased with cash for $495,000 in 2022. It has sat vacant and unimproved except for cutting down some trees. The other property was part of a larger real estate purchase by an owner who bought $6 million worth of property in our Lake Norman area in just 1 week in June of 2022. These are no mom and pops. These are the same handful of developers that file LLC after LLC to throw you off the track of who's in bed with who. If you enjoy a good rabbit hole, I recommend spending some time on the Secretary of State website. Please don't reward property owners of downtown deteriorating houses for doing nothing but asking you to. Require that each one comes back individually for conditional rezoning with plans. It is the only way to ensure that we get a quality product for our revitalization project. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Frank Gammon. Mr. Gammon, you know the drill. A little different perspective?
Frank Gammon, resident of the town of Huntersville. Mr. Chair, members of the planning board, thank you for what you do for the town of Huntersville and giving me the opportunity to speak as a citizen. And I have a statement to read. I'm here to ask you to recommend denial of petition R24-09 Town Center General Rezoning. The general rezoning of the parcels identified is not in the interest of the people of Huntersville. Before I proceed, let me be clear. I am in no way opposed to the development of these properties. It was stated at the 4 November 24 public hearing by the Planning Department, and I quote, "Some people have asked me why not come in with individual conditional rezoning. These can be viewed in the development community as a barrier to entry. Removing that, i.e. the barrier, by rezoning it to the base town center district invites some potential projects that would not come before," end quote. My interpretation of this quote is, because an unidentified applicant or applicants cannot build what they want to build on the NR zone parcels by right without public comment, the parcels are being rezoned to TC to allow the applicant or applicants to build what they wish to build by right, thereby removing the barrier, in this case, the public conditional rezoning process and the associated public input. Who are the applicants? What are the projects? Why are we abandoning conditional rezoning process? It is not a barrier, it is an open-end public process. Again, R24-09, Town Center General Rezoning, is not in the interest of the citizens of Huntersville because the citizens of Huntersville will not have any voice in how Town Center is developed, and it establishes a slippery precedent for future Town Center development as Town Center expands. Again, I urge you to recommend denial of R24-09, Town Center General Rezoning, and thank you again for this opportunity.
Thanks, sir. Amy Hallman, you are up next and have 3 minutes.
Amy Holman. I come to you as a fifth-generation Huntersville resident of my downtown property at 119 Gilead Road. My son will be the 6th generation to live in that house soon. Not soon enough. I'd like to remind you that I'm not against all development. I have been a big supporter of the Golden Cow Project, Walk 23 on Gilead, the new Town Hall, 760 Craftworks, purchasing Cashins, and even North State's Maxwell Street townhomes. These applications before you have errors. The staff report is grossly incomplete. I emailed you the research history of the area properties. This general rezoning would absolutely adversely affect a historical or cultural resource, several of them. On page 10 of the downtown master plan, you can see that houses at 121, 119, 115, 108, and 106 Gilead each merit attention as a historic structural footprint as evidenced in the 2018 Huntersville Architectural Survey. 121, 119, and 108 have undergone renovation, but 106, 115, and 117 have not. Half of us have invested in improvements, and half have asked the town to upgrade their properties as is. I am against a general rezoning request, not conditional. Each property owner should be told to come back individually with plans and with all the players involved to ensure that we as a town get the best product for Huntersville. General rezoning will remove almost any say that the town board has at what can and should go there. 117 sits fully beside and in front of a residential property in the Greenfield Park neighborhood. His application reads his current use of daycare is incorrect. According to an email I received from planning staff, 117 was granted a change of use in April 2024 to a restaurant. So which is it, a beer garden, a restaurant, a Pint and Page, a coffee bar, a resale? I don't know, and you don't either. Rezoning 117 Gilead to general TC allows him by right to have a beer garden, his original plan that was taken to the staff, with outside drinking, music, and activities until God knows when, because there is no restriction in a general rezoning at all within 30 feet of my bedroom windows. At least noise and light intrusion will be more significant than in current NR based on the unending operational hours. No restrictions include the time of day that a trash truck can collect from the dumpster. Within NR, he can operate outside the walls of his building. He cannot operate outside the walls of his building except on the front porch, which makes sense among residences. This parcel alone is clearly its own rezoning petition. I've heard Mr. Richards tell two now petitioners, you can look at rezoning, you've got general and conditional rezoning districts. How specific do you want to get? General means you can do anything that's set within the town center district. There's no rules. Conditional district, maybe you say you'll close by 10 or, certain nights a week you're open. So that's the nice thing about conditional rezoning. You can self-impose restrictions.
Thank you. Next up, Elaine Kearns. Ms. Kearns, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Elaine Kearns, a resident of Huntersville and a previous member of the Downtown Planning Steering Committee. I'm going to finish Amy's speech because I 100% agree with it. Business hours do not come in a general rezoning. A TC by right, nightclub, music club, bar, and similar entertainment facility would have 0 conditions, no board request, and no discussion nor compromise on business hours or anything else. While both TC and NR allow music, NR does not allow outdoor seating, therefore the music would be contained. Also, with no hours of operation in TC, remember that is in conditional zoning only. Nearby residents are not protected. Calling 911 for a noise nuisance is not sufficient and should not become the burden of the residents. Staff cannot say they will protect residents when rezoning from NR to town center allows for the highest residential density and the broadest allowance of commercial options. Once approved, TC does not require any further board approval for specific projects. You know you cannot protect the residents when TC has 0 buffer requirements and 0 tree save. 3 of these properties are vacant and have been for 2 to 20 years. One was inherited about 20 years ago. One was bought in June of 22 and the other in December of 22. These aren't mom and pop developers. These are not some longtime Huntersville residents trying to turn their property into a business. A November 4th email from one of these Gilead property owners confirmed to town staff that North State is involved. Why are they not included in this petition? I am not theoretically opposed to North State for some of this development, but bring them in. Staff says the size of these parcels is not conducive to 3- and 4-story buildings, despite the downtown master plan saying that all the southern new builds along Gilead should be 3 to 4 stories. While his reason is parking, he does not admit that staff is looking at removing our downtown parking requirements. With the 121 property owner admitting he does not plan to change his day-to-day operations anytime soon, it's safe to say that each of these properties can already operate well within NR zoning. According to our previous planning director, NR zoning was created to allow the addition of some commercial businesses within the residential homes and feather into or out of TC while operating with respect to the existing residents. This is why the petition should not be approved. On page 61 of the 2040 plan, the very first sentence under implementation is, quote, "Our communities do not change overnight. For instance, properties should not be preemptively upzoned based on the future land use map until other areas have filled in or the proper infrastructure, roads, parks, schools, utilities, emergency services, et cetera, is in place," end quote. Conditional rezoning is what we do in Huntersville. Conditional rezoning would be in good faith, would be a good steward of the community and of the neighborhoods around them. Conditional zoning have conditions, concessions for existing neighbors. As a town and as a resident, we have not spent all of these resources to simply do general rezoning now. There are simply too many questions. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and actually this next public comment speaker, you're the applicant for 24-09. Did you want to speak during that, given you are the applicant versus public comments? Do you want to do it now, or do you want to wait till we do the rezoning that involves your property? I just wanted to give you the option, is all. Go for it then. Go for it. Okay, if you would say your name, and actually it looks like
Yeah,
you have also been given 3 additional minutes, so you will have 6 minutes.
thank you.
Yes.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for giving me a chance to introduce myself. My name is Derong Huang. You can also call me Rebecca. I'm the owner of the property located at 115 Guinea Road. I'm also one of the applicants for this rezoning request. I own the Dumpling Girls food truck business. Some of you might be familiar with my truck, and I have done many events in Huntersville neighborhood since COVID. I also do events on a regular basis at Huntersville breweries like Primal, 760 down the street. And I have done lots of Huntersville town events too, like Hello Huntersville, Huntersville Halloween Festival, National Night Out. I would like to say, throughout all those events and our hard work, we have built a good relationship with the Huntersville residents and have gained their trust and love. And I would like to thank all of us Huntersville residents, including all of you here. Thank you. I'm gonna give you a little bit of a history of me. I originally come from China, and I went to school and live in United States for over 22 years now. Hard to believe. I have been a citizen and a registered voter for years now. I have worked very, very hard and always dreamed to have my own restaurant. Finally, 2 years ago, I refinanced my primary home and was able to purchase this property at 115 Guinea Road. If you were familiar, this house was in a very, very bad shape, especially the overgrowing bamboos and the huge trees creates dangers in the front. And there were like 6 inches dirt in the front on the foyer. And I was the one and with my son and going cross over the windows and go there, push the dirt out from the foyer. And also got the trees cutting down and cleared up the back, the bamboo. It cost a lot of money. and really, I have tried to maintain the property as nice as possible. It was not in a living condition. If you wanted to go have a look, it was really bad. Okay, I have tried very hard. Anyway, otherwise, I love the location. I love the surrounding and vibes, especially the pickleball courts at the Holbrook Park. And I love play pickleball, by the way, there myself. I'm very excited that my property is considered for rezoning to align the town's vision for downtown Huntersville. Otherwise, in order for me to develop the property to meet my objectives and also aligns with the town center vision, I would need to hire a professional engineer to create rezoning plans, which is very, very expensive for a small business like me. With this rezoning, I would be able to work with the guidelines outlined in our zoning ordinance under the town center district. This is gonna be a very big help for small businesses. Really, I thank you, for. Okay. Well, at last, I would like to encourage you all to please read section 326 Town Center District in the zoning ordinance. It outlines the goals of the Town Center District very clearly and how it anchors the surrounding neighborhood. Again, thank you all being here tonight to discuss this rezoning. It's my honor to speak. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you. All right, next up. If I'm reading this correctly, Jesse Oden? Is it Oden? You'll pass, okay. All right. And then Harold Hudson?
I was going to speak after I heard the recommendation. That was my understanding of the process.
No.
No? I don't have anything to say until I see more of the architectural renderings for this project.
Okay.
I was waiting on that.
What?
Sorry, I misunderstood.
No, that's completely fine. What I would, in that scenario, what I would recommend is some of that will flush out tonight, right? And then the next step, regardless of what our recommendation is this evening, the next step would be that it goes to the town board. By then, you will have seen more of what gets presented tonight. And then when there's public comments at that meeting, you would have more to speak on at that time. But the order of every meeting, whether it's planning board, town board, where public comments is ahead of those. So even if you went to the town board meeting, that would come up first. So that's why I may not be saying it as concisely as I should, but. So I got you. So, no, just a point of clarification on that. That was officially labeled a public hearing. And so that meeting also had public comments at the start of it, which could be general. But then the town has to, as one of the steps, specifically call a public hearing. And you could do, and that's what you saw that time. So I understand the difference, but I get it. No, I did, and I took 2 minutes and 57 seconds of it. So, sure.
Sir, I'd also encourage you to reach out directly to the applicant if you want to have a conversation offline with the applicant. If you're trying to get more detail about the plans, there's nothing saying you can't have a direct conversation with the applicant. It doesn't have to be in a public forum. Yeah.
Okay. Next up, Cole Miller. Cole, once you're up there, your name, and then you have 3 minutes, sir.
Good evening. Thank you for a moment of your time. My name's Cole Miller. I've been a resident of Ansonboro Square in Huntersville for 6 years this week. Very exciting when I got a chance to move in there and start renovations on the place. It was a well-established neighborhood that's been great. In the last meeting, I think half of this side of the room was full of all of my neighbors and residents who really believe in our community. And I'm here to request your denial of R2406 in its current form. Not that there shouldn't be allowed building there in the future, it's just that the current proposal does not fit the neighborhood for many of the valid reasons that were mentioned in the last meeting, which I won't go through again. But it really came down to two key issues, lot size and the aesthetics. The lot size being inadequately small for the proposal and the aesthetics being considerably different than the neighborhood that's been established for 20-plus years. My major concern was the opening to these townhomes is 16 feet between the existing buildings. That's also the width of my townhouse currently. So the width of one townhouse is now going to be an opening to 4 in a lot that is so small that you're going to be very close to their neighbors' windows looking in, and that the current lot won't even allow for them to have garages like all of our other units. Not that I care whether a new person has a garage or not, it's more about the privacy that's added in that, because for our community, we have townhouses, we have a backyard area, then we have a garage, adding to a great amount of privacy. In my 6 years of living in this community, I've never once had an issue with a neighbor, because we all have a very nice private area with lots of green space. It's been a wonderful place to live. This proposal is going to dramatically change our neighborhood, and that's where our concern comes in. You know, we've purchased these homes years ago where we had these green spaces. Now that's being proposed taken away. If this was 2 townhouses with access to our, sidewalk with access to our mailboxes, if, it was actually on the street like every other townhouse in our neighborhood, I don't think anybody would have a concern. But we're putting 4 into a space that is considerably smaller than any other. And I understand the need for density, but that is my concern. So I would implore you to please save our community and deny R2406. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And next up, Marilyn Ainsley.
This is the right time that I was speaking about something that's coming up in the meeting.
It is, and in this case, it's because you are not an applicant.
Okay,
So you do public comment, you will get 3 minutes.
okay. And you can pass these down. Each person can have a copy. I'm basically going to be reading, but this is concerning the conditional rezoning for Walden. It's possible to easily correct the berm to meet the original requirements by moving the top part of the slope that is too steep on our side to the other side, so our side has a 3-1 slope with perhaps one exception of the section to the left of the street stub on Chopin Ridge Road, which would require them to replace the sidewalk. We want the buffer rebuilt to 30 feet with a more gradual grade to no less than 3-1, an adjustment to the manhole elevation area by adding soil to restore buffer up to height of the manhole, restoring the gentle grade from our property if that means they need to remove the stub street or sidewalk, so be it. We've had deep erosion up to within a foot of our property line, and we do not want it coming onto our farm and devaluing our property. So that really needs a lot of attention. The original buffer berm requirements need to be restored and completed to correct drainage problems and erosion. The missing 6-inch drainage ditch at the base of the berm must be in place to prevent drainage problems that did not exist prior to Walden's work. The developer's right to develop does not allow them to compromise our property. There are state laws against creating drainage problems for others. Please postpone the December 3rd Town Board meeting until the survey as described in these paragraphs is conducted and can be studied by all parties involved. If you do not do so, reject this application, reverting back to the originally approved plan. Require and instruct the developer to resubmit a new or revised application after they complete a land survey performed by an independent third party that excludes the design firm, the developer, or the town, that includes addressing any limited area where there is not enough remaining land to build the berm as originally required. I've included the name of a surveyor that I would trust. Many of you probably know him. The survey must cover the entirety of the buffer berm, including the height, width, slope, and distance of beginning and end at either end of the berm. The survey must not include anything with the term varying in it. The current application would allow them to decrease the buffer berm width to only 22 feet rather than 30 feet. The berm needs to meet the specifications for structural integrity set forth in the erosion control plan that is part of the approved master plan. And we would like to invite any of you that would like to come see this from our side and be able to understand what we're experiencing. If you contact me, I wrote my phone number on, I'll be glad to give you a ride around.
And ma'am, if you would just say your name for the public record, please, before you step out.
Say what?
Your name for the public
I'm
record,
sorry.
please. That's okay.
Marilyn Ainsley.
Thank you. Okay, and from the Burbricks, will it be Josh or Tony speaking? So, going to go separate, okay. Yes. All right, Mr. Burbrick, you have 3 minutes. State your name for the public record.
Josh Burbrick, Fred Brown Road. So I'm going to discuss what happened at the community meeting. First of all, it was troubling that the project manager, who has not been compliant with us, was running the town meeting. The town planner, or former town planner, David Pete, was there. The design engineer was there. That's who we wanted to hear from. David Pete and the design engineer, Daniel Gates, remained silent for the whole meeting. It was a community meeting, so we posed questions to them. If the first question that we posed to David Pete was he aware that this was not going to conform to the standards? He shook his head. No words. The engineer, who was part of them removing the dirt and putting the berm back, no response also. This was probably 5 or 6 questions in. So the berm now is not, Jack Simino said that it had to be 3-to-1, the slope of the berm, which is the berm, and he said that is the absolute minimum. We went to David Pete's office. He assured us that was going to be the minimum, said he'd take care of it. We asked the design engineer, nothing to say, 0. So while the guy from Walden is running the meeting, he's trying to answer questions that we don't want him to answer. So the real response is, why did they take the dirt out that was structurally sound, if that's a word about dirt, that had been there for many years? They removed the dirt, and then they put their dirt back in, higher. That dirt is loose. I'm no engineer. I'm certainly not a design engineer, but I can speak. So I'm going to say I know it needs to be compacted. And there's plenty of room onto the property of Walden where they're building houses for profit to make that structurally sound and to make that 3-to-1. 2-to-1 is ridiculous. It's already falling apart. Behind the Ainsley's house, I bet it dropped 8 feet already. When a rain came, it was like it was never even there. All you can see is a big manhole cover now. I don't even know what they were thinking there. And the manhole is above this street. I wish you guys could go see it. But one of my main concern is, if they knew about this in 2018, why didn't they correct it? Why didn't they make an amendment? Why did the town pass this if they knew it wasn't going to happen? How did the Walden, the town engineer, or civil engineer, the town planner, why did they all pass this? And now they're saying that these little bushes that they planted in a hurry because they were coming, the meeting was coming, how is that going to be a buffer for anyone? So, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Okay, Tony Burbrick, you are our last speaker this evening. If you'd say your name for the public record, and you have 3 minutes, ma'am.
I'm providing you a handout of what I'm reading in case I don't get through it. I ask that you consider the photographs that I sent via email and the information regarding this project. There is a reason.
Ma'am, go ahead and state your name for the
Oh,
public record.
I apologize. Antonia Burbrick, 15300 Fred Brown Road, Huntersville, North Carolina.
Thank you.
There's a reason for the 3-to-1 slope. As Jack Simno pointed out, if it's anything less, it requires underground drainage within the berm to prevent erosion from a steeper slope. The issue here is not feasibility. This is not a minor adjustment to the slope to make the berm fit within the buffer. There's more than ample space over a significant majority of this berm to correct the berm to the 3-to-1 slope. We're not asking that you make a decision tonight. We're urging you to postpone it until you get more information. Standard engineering practices require a land survey with, if you're approving a berm, a topography survey of those aspects, the berm and buffer. That has not been performed. They're relying on what we heard last night was, for the first time, an aerial survey, and we still haven't been provided it. The town board has been asking for it. We're saying that there's not enough information for you sitting here tonight to make an educated decision on whether or not this is a minor decision. And the biggest issue here is that you are creating a major loophole for every developer on every project, because the terms of this application use the word varying. If you use the word varying for any section of a structure, it should be specific to which section of that structure you need to vary. This covers over 50 lots, probably 1,000 linear feet of, I don't even know how many, 2 full street lengths of property. And there's a minor section that they have an issue with, that it's not feasible. They knew about it before they put the sidewalk in. The day the sidewalk was put in, the town manager was standing there and laughing, saying, do you know that they have to move this sidewalk? But they had to accept the cement because the cement company wouldn't take it back. Don't worry about it, though, Mrs. Burbrick. Don't worry about all these issues. We're going to make them fix it. It's going to be right. There's nothing for you to worry about. He admitted that, the town manager admitted that he knew that they made mistakes when they approved the grading plan that was contrary to the master plan. If we allow varying degrees of any dimension on a plan in this application, whether it be the berm or a lot size or anything else, that term varying will be abused by across the board. And I urge you to keep our standards high and think on this, consider the information. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Okay. Next up, the action agenda. The first item on tonight's agenda, we're going to consider a recommendation on R24-09, that is Town Center General Rezoning located west of NC 115, so Old Statesville Road, along Gilead Road.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Item 2409 and, I'm sorry, the following number.
No.
24. Yeah, 2406. I've got a conflict on both of those, and it would be inappropriate for me to sit on the board for those two.
Okay. All right. Motion to recuse Jay Henson for agenda item 4A and 4B.
Making the motion, or you're asking for one?
I decided to make it, I guess,
Okay,
today.
I'll second it then.
There we go. All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none.
And Mr. Chairman, item number R2412, the Walton berm. I will recuse myself. I have a perceived conflict of interest in that I literally see this berm from my backyard and have watched the development as it's occurred. So in order to avoid any perception of conflict, I will recuse myself.
Okay. And when we get to that, Mr. Pollard, at 4C, just remind me, and we'll do the actual vote to take care of that for you. All right. Mr. Richards.
Hey, good evening.
Hi there.
All right, we've already heard lots about these, this case so far, so let's get a quick recap from the public hearing. R2409 is a general rezoning of 4 properties located west of Highway 115 along Gilead Road. You can see the applicants and their approximate acreage for these. Give a quick rundown of the Gilead Road corridor, starting from the west side to the east side. We'll go along the north. On the west side, we've got the post office, the current Walk 23 development, which is a mixed-use development, Huntersville Elementary School, the former bed and breakfast, and now one of the properties that's up for sale, or I'm sorry, for rezoning, and then the commercial 760, along with the recently purchased Cashins. Those are all commercial properties. On the south side, you've got an office. You've got some more mixed use and office along the south side. You see many of those homes, former homes, have become changes of uses. The dentist office is there, the orthodontist office, an approved multi-family development that's waiting to be built, another office and mixed-use development, 3 more homes that were converted over to office, as well as the historic property on the corner, which is converted over to an office, the Hallman residence, and then the former daycare, which did get a change of use for commercial use, and then Rebecca's property there, the white one, and then of course we've got the Huntersville Town Center that's under construction, and Town Center. 2040 Community Plan calls for this to be a town core in mixed-use centers. All those, we are very familiar with those uses, mixture of uses, mixture of residents and businesses. The little insight to the 2040 plan. At that time, they looked at 2 tiers, and as you keep your main concentration towards the intersection and along the rail corridor, and as you fade out north, south, east, and west, that you would go down to a little bit lesser intense. Do want to point out, generally those buildings are 2 to 3 stories. It's going to depend on the properties that are there, and also the size of the property, what can be accommodated on those. Predominantly residential with some small scale commercial. Of course, this is a general rezoning, so we don't have specifics on any potential projects that would occur. The recently adopted 22 downtown master plan, if we're looking at the gathering requirements in that section, we're looking to make places of interest and bring other businesses into town, so we have places for folks to gather on the nights and weekends in addition to daytime. A lot of clarification as what can be used. Currently, on the left side, you'll see is the properties are zoned neighborhood residential. Highlighted in green are commercial uses. There are restrictions on those. One unique thing that's allowed in neighborhood residential but not in the town center district is a retirement community. It's kind of twofold with that. You can do congregate care, which is also dependent or independent living facility, so you can sort of do a retirement community in neighborhood residential. But I highlighted all the uses that are unique to town center that do not occur in neighborhood residential. Those are highlighted in yellow. Again, the commercial uses highlighted there in green are without the restrictions that occur in the neighborhood residential district. And just to, a number of people have talked about the different types of uses. I did want to talk about the restrictions that the commercial use in the neighborhood residential district have. It is here. They do have some hours of operations, and outdoor activities are limited to the front porch. And staff is in favor of this general rezoning. We think it will be a good opportunity for some development to occur downtown, and we're here to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you. Questions for staff?
I think your last slide right before this one, just to be clear, this is for town core.
This is for neighborhood residential.
Okay.
So any property that meets these restrictions, the restrictions are in a mixed-use building along the arterial, or the next bullet point down, which is more commonly used, which is in the quarter mile of the town center district, you can go full commercial in any existing home, or a building that is built to look like a home. For instance, the Charlestown building, it's It's residential style, but it's full commercial top to bottom.
So the commercial and neighborhood residential,
Mhm.
that's the hours
Correct,
restrictions.
correct.
And how does, and you're implying that doesn't differ in the town center?
So if I were to develop a building that looked like a house or operated as a commercial business in town center, there's no hours of operation. There's no restrictions.
Okay. And I guess kind of related to that, the building height,
Mhm.
the difference between the town center and neighborhood residential.
Building height's not based on zoning, so it's based on building type, and we do have massing and scaling restrictions in our ordinance. So if I had a one-story building, I could not build a three-story building right next to it unless it tiered up.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Do we have any other examples and set any precedent on just a general rezoning without bringing an actual type of business that's going to be there? And what was the result of that?
Sure. Historically, in the 20 years that I've been here, general rezonings are not commonly used. When I first arrived, the town proactively rezoned about 1,000 acres into corporate business. Most of those lands were neighborhood residential, but the town set those aside for future businesses along the Hambright Road corridor, the business park where ABB Southwire is located, and then down south of Hambright and Mount Holly Huntersville. That's where you're seeing the large flex warehouses being built now. So we do the town did sponsor those. Typically, most rezonings are conditional in nature.
More questions for staff? Yes, sir.
Hey, I've got a few. Can you go back to the first slide?
Yeah, absolutely.
And just to give you the narrative, I guess, I kind of determined that this is a good idea overall, but it's the wrong method, so this is going to be the way I approach my questions and in kind your answers, I guess.
Sure.
All right, so just looking at these properties, we've got 4 properties. You got 16 property lines, and they only share 1. That's, I mean, that doesn't sound general to me. So is there some rule that when you use general zoning, there has to be some congruentness amongst the parcels that are being rezoned, or they can be scattered?
Correct. They can.
Okay, okay. Let's see. So is general zoning, by your example, is a general rezoning used more for raw land, or I guess it can be used for redevelopment? Can you cite a case where it was used for actual redevelopment? Were there existing structures and we decided that's not for us, kind of thing?
You'll be hearing a case later this evening that's also applying for a general rezoning that will be similar, but the folks do know what they're going to do. I'm just trying to think. Historically, like proactively, again, due to the Lee Goforth Economic Development Plan that the town had done a number of years ago, the town went out and did a general rezoning to encompass and promote economic development. It did take a while for that to occur over time. So we see most of those large warehouses being built right now.
Yeah.
But
The town initiated that, though.
Correct, correct. I'm just trying to recall off the top of my head, most rezonings are conditional in nature.
Okay.
These applicants chose to go for a general rezoning for whatever reasons. I can't speak to that, but they chose that tool. They have the right
Okay.
to do that.
Right, right.
And we're just being in alignment with that.
Yeah, I get it. You accepted an application, you got to process it. I understand.
Sure.
Okay. I guess some of the other questions is the hit and miss of the configuration of these, where you would think a general rezoning, there was one overriding idea that would drive that, maybe even one developer or something like that, but you've got 106, the one beside 760, and it abuts civic property, it abuts 760. I'm not sure if 760 was conditional when we did it or not, but regardless, it's town center, I'm good with that. And then it abuts neighborhood residential, what we used to call the bed and breakfast, 108. And then you've got 115, 117 that are kind of embedded in the North State project, that they are town center CD, surrounded by town center CD, except on one side, and That's what we heard earlier tonight. There's a neighborhood residential residence. And then pretty much sandwiched next to them is the 121 property that really doesn't need to do this in the foreseeable future because they're set. That house is immaculate and his business is in there and up and running. So that's another thing that kind of hints to me that maybe we're headed down the wrong path on conditional zoning. General zoning. Sure. All right, let's see. In part 2 on the, I guess, next page. Next page.
Sure.
The comments in the staff report, they don't appear here, I think, but these are here. So you this one sentence jumped out at me. Since this is a general rezoning, there are no specific site issues with the rezoning application, and there is no site plan attached to the request, but this is a should there be thing. I mean, you said that the example we're going to see later has a plan attached to it, right?
It does not.
No plan there either, okay.
The gentleman does know what he wants to do with the property.
Okay, that's,
In these cases, these folks are asking for this opportunity to, they don't have a buyer or they don't have a specific plan attached to these. If they did, we would recommend going through the conditional process.
okay. And I think the citizens would be a lot happier. That's just an editorial comment. Let's see, 2040 plan references, tier 1, tier 2 stuff. So the comments in the staff report say the 2040 plan also shows property is located within tier 1 and 2 designations. These areas call for a mixture of uses. But if we generally rezone, then we really have no influence over that mixture. They could come in and put 3 dentist offices.
They could.
Okay, all right. Answered. The reference to the downtown master plan. Bullet 2. I mean, this is where we tied it to the downtown master plan over gathering. So that one's a little, I don't know. The note says this does not mean the entire primary gathering area A and B would or should contain commercial development. So it's just because it's there doesn't mean it has to.
Correct.
One really want to stress. All right, we're getting there. Let's see, and then staff comments, I guess, in general. You got these in a slide form?
I do not.
Okay. You mind if I read them?
No, feel free.
Get me. So, yeah, I get we're citing the usuals, the LU 1s and 2s, but there seems to be a lot of areas in both our downtown plan and our 2040 community plan that don't agree with the elements of general rezoning. There are quite a few to list. I don't know in what order to do this. The first one I picked up is 1.3, okay? EV 1.3. Inventory and protecting strategic development sites. So using a general reclassification says, okay, we've decided that we don't need to neither inventory or protect. It pretty much says that up to the limits of this new TC zoning. Okay, all right, we're good there. So, and then, let's see. Overall, I mean, the whole implementation part, when we start the process of assigning consistency elements in the 2040 community plan that agree with the development coming forward, we go to the implementation chapter, and the very first chapter reads, property should not be preemptively upzoned. So there needs to be, and this is what, a little more balance, I guess, in the staff comments I would ask, that there are some inconsistencies, and maybe we should draw those out. That's kind of what I'm going at.
Sure. No, and again, the 2040 plan is a guideline. These folks, these landowners have chosen to go through this path, and it is our job as the planning staff to usher them through this process.
Okay, yeah, I'm not faulting you a bit. You have to process the application. I'm with you 100%. I just ask when it goes through that process, check they do this, and check this doesn't make it. And then,
Mr. Holman?
Yes, sir.
It sounds like a lot of these in the direction we're now headed would be better served in discussion of a motion. This is questions for staff.
Well, yeah, I've got that covered too, but let me just get through his report and ask him questions about his report. I'm almost done.
Latitude.
I'm almost done. I'll skip that for brevity. All right, last one. Yeah, last one. So the last comment here in the staff report, the test question is whether the proposed reclassification would adversely affect a known archaeological, thank you, environmental, historical, or cultural resource. Your comment reads, planning staff has no indication that the request would adversely affect a known archaeological, environmental resource, but it omits historical and cultural. Does that mean there's none there, or does that mean it does adversely affect those two?
I would say that it does not adversely affect. There are no proposals to affect those properties. We'll just use Mr. Henson's property. His office has a historic designation. They're not looking to change that. There are protections in place through the historic properties. The designation that would need to be if anything were to occur to that property, that's a whole different process they have to go through. So the general rezoning itself does not negatively affect those properties. They can remain as is.
Follow-up question? Sure. So if the two residents of this area that are being enveloped by this general rezoning, if they were to go and get official historical designation, would they have further protections then?
Under those guidelines, under the historical guidelines, correct.
Okay, so we don't recognize historic structures unless they've been certified by the...
Correct.
Okay.
Just because something could be historically protected doesn't mean it is historically.
We learned that from Dr. Craven's house. Okay. Thank you.
Just real quick.
Sure, go ahead.
So let's say we pass this general zoning. Do the applicants then need to come back with the product that they want to put there? So we can, re-vet that and make sure that it fits in kind with the neighborhood, with everything else? Or as long as they meet inside of that box, they're good to go?
Sure. Two things. As long as they meet all of the rules, with dot the i's, cross the t's on the town zoning and subdivision ordinance, we would issue a permit. If they need an exception or a modification, then it would come through the rezoning process.
And just for clarification, one of those rules is they can play music outside all night.
They could. Now, that being said, all night's different, and we do have our noise ordinance that would be enforced by the police department.
Which goes until?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no time.
There's not a time.
There's
amplified, and there's considered. There's not a decibel level. No, there's not.
So I guess this is asking you as the department, what protections have you put in place for these people who are close to this transition area? And this is going to continue to happen, right? As we develop downtown and as things change over, what protections are in place for these existing homeowners so they don't live next to like a nightclub or a place that plays live music or something like that, that could be a nuisance?
So if we're speaking specifically on noise, the police department have the noise ordinance that they can enforce. And I would ask for a follow-up question to you is, what sort of protection? There's a number of protections in the ordinance written, setbacks, screening, those types of things, lighting ordinance, those things are all protection. Is there something you're looking for?
Yeah, I was just looking for them to come back, right? Let's say we change this to town center. I'd like for them to come back and say, hey, we're putting a venue here that plays music. Allow us the opportunity to say, okay, but you need to be done by X, Y, Z, or something like that in a conditional rezoning, right?
If they meet all the rules, they would not come back to any board. It would just be a permit process. If they do need exceptions, then they would have to go through the conditional rezoning process.
Chris, you good?
Yeah, I'm kind of very simplistic about many things in life. It's easier that way. I can understand general zoning certainly has a place without fail. If I'm talking about an industrial park and I want to see development rather quickly, that's great because the implication or impact to it is relatively low. You're not going to have a lot of abutting neighbors who have a vested interest in what happens. Unfortunately, downtown core, the historic downtown, is one where you have many partners who are highly invested in the downtown. I think the other thing, too, is that I keep thinking about there's an elementary school a couple of yards down. There's a Discovery Center across the street. Without having more vetting power over projects that come in, I question whether or not we really are approving something that will have character and continuity with the rest of the neighborhood. And those are two very important elements to the neighborhood. So again, I think it has its place, but there must be some way to ensure the continuity between all of the character that is already invested in the downtown versus that will be new. So did I miss something, or is there some aspect that should be looked at differently?
No, you've got a great point. Again, there's more input from the public in a conditional rezoning than there is in a general rezoning. Again, I would go back to the applicants chose to go this venue and this route, and that's what we're going to do.
Sorry, I got one more follow-on.
Oh, that's fine.
Sure.
So, in one, not in the other, I'm good at playing that game. So, in town center, you can, by right, you can install a nightclub, music bar, bars, whatever comes with it.
Correct.
You cannot do that in neighborhood residential.
Correct.
Can you go to the next slide?
Sure.
These restrictions exist in NR that prevents a bar from operating after 9 p.m. And it also prevents goods and services beyond the front porch.
Correct.
So, if we just took an example of an existing structure that was habitable and changed the zoning from NR to TC, that owner could open a bar.
They could.
Thank you.
Just as a point of interest too, go back to this list, especially with the uses with conditions, the automobile and automobile sales, that was the former Gandy car dealership downtown. So going through this exercise, we've noticed there's some text amendments we need to do. We'll be asking you at some point in time to remove that from town center. So
That's where the
yeah,
original fire station was, right?
now it's where the
That was a
Sliver
different-
is right now.
Oh,
It's on that
okay.
property. Yep.
Different, but weren't they in the back of a car dealership?
The fire station?
Yeah. Isn't that where they kept the stuff?
Right next to
It's
it.
been there for a while.
Okay.
One more, Jeff.
Good times.
Go on.
All right, yeah, ask another hypothetical. If it hypothetically goes back to conditional rezoning, and this may be a question for Jacob, and a bar is a proposal at that point, do we legally have rights to put in that conditional rezoning the hours we think are appropriate?
No. So those would need to be agreed to by the town board and the applicant mutually,
So if we went that route, it would just strictly be
a negotiation.
people saying, I'm against a bar, not I'm against the
I don't want
hours.
to say how the conversation would go, but there could be a negotiation between the applicant and the town board.
A good example of that would be Long Creek Entertainment.
Yeah.
And we worked that out, but they,
Did they, I don't recall, did they sign something legally?
Yes, those are conditions.
They
of the
did, okay.
rezoning, and they signed the paper acknowledging this thing.
Okay.
Another quick question, 760, is that town center or is that a conditional rezoning?
Town center,
Okay, so they could have live music on that patio
correct.
until whenever they wanted, right now? Okay.
okay, a few questions.
Sure.
So should they become zoned town center, in what ways can you think of that 115 and 117 could ultimately be, not that they would want to, but ultimately be purchased by the same person or entity and utilized by right for a singular project?
That could happen.
Okay, and then follow up to that, does it matter if the parcels are combined then or not?
Most likely, they would be recombined.
They would be recombined, okay. And would it matter at all if it was one bit, like that project was one building, one structure? And would that have, make any difference versus multiple structures on the two parcels?
That's a big question.
Sorry.
If you have multiple buildings on one parcel, it does go through a multi-building process, which is a subdivision process. So you would have a community meeting for that. If you could just recombine them, and if you had one building on the recombined parcel, that could be just by permits.
Okay. And so to play off of that regarding 106, so should that one become Zone Town Center and redevelopment is kept then to one building, then they could do it by right, yeah. So that one only is forced back to us if it's gonna be designed as 2 or more buildings.
No, again, subdivisions are done administratively now. So if they meet all of the subdivision rules, all the zoning rules, it's a permit process.
Okay.
But if you do more than one building on one parcel, there would be a community meeting, because that's still part of our subdivision process.
That's right. That's right. Okay, thank you. And the parcels in question on the south side of Gilead, all those are in the PA2, correct?
Correct.
And that's maximum 70% built upon, and that's including with the BMP, like that's just
Correct.
max with, okay. Let's see, and then last question, because there are multiple parcels with multiple applicants, are we making a recommendation on the total collection or individually?
Yeah, all 4.
Okay. All right, and the reason I was asking that is just because our rules and procedures talk about breaking up,
Sure.
if possible, whatever, but I didn't know under what structure or condition that was possible.
They're under one application.
Gotcha, okay. All right, I'm good. Any additional questions for staff? No?
Just got one.
No, that's fine.
Here, listen.
Sorry, no.
Fire away.
Since you brought it up, Jeff, if you don't mind, we heard from one of the residents earlier that North State was looking at some of these properties, just since we got you, here, just for curiosity maybe. So if North State were to purchase 115 and 170,
Okay.
could they incorporate that into their town center
No,
project?
they could not.
They'd have to develop independently, they couldn't use their parking, their catch ponds, any of that stuff.
That's different. Yes, they could utilize those. There would need to be agreements been put in place between the 2 projects. But the buffer would need to stay there. So there are some impediments to that. It would make it challenging to try to combine them.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah. Okay, and outside of, we already heard from one applicant during public comments. Are there any other applicants here or that want to speak?
Mr. Henson, and then Rebecca's here. I don't see anybody else in the group here today.
Okay.
Anybody else? So you can ask the applicants questions.
I don't have questions for the applicants. We were kind of at that next step, so I just wanted to give them the opportunity. Does anyone have?
Yeah, just a general question. Why are they going after it like this with no plan in place and just, 4 different properties? It just seems like it would be better fit to, do one. If we want to do a restaurant here, we come here and ask for a restaurant and we go through those motions. If we want to do a nightclub on one, we can go through those motions.
And so did you want to ask that to
Yes,
one of the applicants?
yes, that was to all the applicants.
How about we go ahead and invite them up then?
Oh, okay, yeah.
And whatever,
Pardon, what's your questions?
Yeah, I just wondering why we're doing all 4 of them kind of together, even though it's not one redevelop. It's just like, why aren't we saying, I don't know the addresses, sorry, everybody's throwing around these numbers. Why aren't we doing one of the houses as, hey, we want to do a restaurant here, and then we can go through those motions and say, yes, that would be great. We would love a restaurant.
Oh, you are asking me why? Well, I don't thinking about that because I was doing, it's just like, I really never think about that. I can't answer you that question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just wondering. And is it the plan for?
That's another option I can do just myself.
Yes.
I was like, no, I don't really.
It is, yeah. Like, so we could say 115 is going to be a restaurant, and we want to transition it to TC, and we can ask you a couple more questions and then vote.
Oh, okay.
As opposed to just, doing this general, all four things, we don't know what's coming.
So really, I'm pretty, I'm not familiar with all this,
Understood? Yeah,
going
it's
on.
tough.
And so,
Me either.
yeah, okay. It's okay. But any more questions for me? If I can answer, I will be happy to answer everyone.
Is that your plan with 115 is to do a
Yeah.
restaurant
I
there?
want to bring I expand my business, Dumpling Girls there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions for the applicant?
Yeah. Anybody have any more
No?
questions for me?
I think we're good, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, with that, if someone has a motion, I'll gladly take a listen.
Mr. Chairman, I have, I have a motion to get discussion started.
All right.
In considering the proposed rezoning petition R-2409 Town Center General Rezoning, Planning Board recommends approval and finds that the rezoning is consistent with Huntersville 2040 Community Plan and specifically policies LU 6.1, 6.2, EV 1.2, 2.2, 2.3, and the gathering principle of the 2022 Downtown Master Plan. The Town Center District will be consistent with the character and uses adjacent to the subject properties. It is reasonable and in the public interest to amend the zoning ordinance to help facilitate future development of the subject parcels to help the town and the citizens realize the vision of the 2040 Master Plan and 2022 Downtown Master Plan.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Mr. Hensley, you want to start us off with discussion?
I will. I think this is as much of a philosophical decision as it is a zoning decision. I look at everything through private property rights. I think as an owner of real estate, you should be able to do anything you want to with your property. I understand we can't do that. We live in a civilized society. So we have to have laws, zoning ordinance, et cetera. But there are plenty of parcels that are zoned TC, and by right, people can go out there and develop them. There's still guidelines. There's still things that you have to follow. It's called the zoning ordinance. We have a zoning ordinance that's very detailed. It's not like if this happens, that these folks can go out there and do whatever they want to. They still have limitations, but they're defined what those limitations are. And it is easier for a small owner to come through the regular, by right application process versus going through a conditional rezoning. We all sit through conditional rezonings. They can be very expensive. You're talking about a relatively small project. I don't know what the typical cost is for a conditional rezoning, but it's probably maybe $20,000, $30,000. So in my opinion, I think this is appropriate, mostly because it is adjoining town center. I think most people would like to see Gilead Road continue to be developed more in commercial, and I think this just helps facilitate these property owners to, again, they still have guidelines. They still have to meet the zoning ordinance. So those are the reasons I'm supporting it.
Ballard, anything you wanted to add?
I was just contemplating the meaning of the universe.
There you go.
That said, I expressed earlier, I think there is value in certainly having general zoning, particularly where you know what the probability of the outcome is very high, that you know the likely type of structure and developments that occur. But when you have a central district, which is core to your downtown, which is historic, I think we need to look at it through a much tighter lens. It's not one that we could afford to make mistakes on. You can make a mistake or two in an industrial park, but not in your historic downtown. And I just simply leave it at that. So with that said, I'm not a proponent of general zoning in an area that has that level of importance and value to the community.
So, Scott, to your point, could the one property owner, right, the small business, not come in and just do a town center rezoning without a conditional? Like, she could come say, hey, I want to do this to town center, I don't know the rules, and not do all the drawings and all that stuff that would cost $20,000, and we could say yes to that one property being town center with the understanding, knowing that it might be something else, but the general understanding is it's going to be a restaurant. Is that?
When you get into conditional zoning, our ordinance requires elevation site plans.
I'm saying her coming for a general rezoning for the one property.
She could, and then if you did a general rezoning, you could not hold her to just a restaurant.
Correct.
So
Yeah,
anything
that's
on
right.
that list.
That's right, yeah. But it wouldn't cost her $20,000 if she came to us and said, yeah, I want to,
That's what she's doing.
Yeah.
yeah.
One correction to that. You're saying if she came
By herself. One person said,
Yeah.
yeah, 115, we're going town center. My plan is to do a restaurant. Now, I might build a 2-story nightclub, and that's a chance we're taking, but at least it's one, and we know what it's going to be in general. Would that mean, I'm just asking a question, could she do that?
You would know.
Not spend.
You would know what it is in general tonight.
Right, yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think what he's saying is that this is bundled, correct? So there are 4 different property owners, and they're all being bundled together. Are we allowed to separate that out? No, they're all, and could she come back
later? She
and,
could.
and on her own do that?
She could.
Okay.
I just want to make a point of clarification on the second, and make sure I understand. Scott voted to approve general rezoning, right? Yeah. Michael said he wanted stricter.
He seconded it for discussion purposes.
Oh, just for discussion. Okay, sorry. I was like, am I understanding?
Yeah.
Okay. Though, I want to thank Scott for making a compelling argument, because I flipped twice so far on this subject. I had a motion to approve it, then I heard some compelling arguments from Lee, and I flipped. On the surface, keeping things simple, town center makes sense. You know, just let's make it town center. But it seems like there is some comfort level that citizens would like to maybe make it a little more stringent in the review process of that, of making it town center. But again, I want to thank Scott for making a good argument, because I've flipped a couple times already, so.
I came in here tonight with an approval written. I flipped. I went back. And I think that where I'm landing personally is that I don't like it bundled. The bundling part to me muddies the waters. So while I think that these likely could all be rezoned pretty simply, I won't be able to vote for that tonight.
And I really was a no walking in, and I really just want to know who my neighbor is and what's coming. And I think it's important for the zoning to know what the property will be, or what they anticipate it to be.
Sorry.
I'll start with a philosophy question, and I can't cite it, but the motive is the meaning, is basically it. So this isn't the Hickory or Frank's trying to bundle something. I wish it was simple, but you gotta parse it out. So you gotta take each one and why are they doing this? And I've been asking that for several weeks. So we know 121 doesn't need it, so we've taken it off the table. And I hear Ms. Barbara, and I feel for her, and plus, especially with the cost of having, not just the application fee, that's minor compared to the site plans that come after that to develop the property. I understand that. But she's gonna have to do that anyway. I mean, you said you're not gonna be able to put a restaurant in that structure that exists today. So if it's a new build, it's gonna take a set of site plans. traditional route and refer to Brian to see if you can get some help with that. And then the rest of these, we're gonna have to take them one by one. There's just no other way to look at it.
Just to clarify, you said 121 doesn't need it.
He stated that he's participating in this, but doesn't need it currently because he has no plan to change his business. Okay, yeah.
So no plans on 121 is what you're saying, but they wouldn't be able to change it without a rezoning. I mean, I got you.
Okay. I'm turning mine off now.
To be fair, what you speak of regarding 121 that was not public. That's not a public comment
All right, let me try it this way. My mic is on. The application says same to same. Do I have the right one? 117, 121. It says his current land use is commercial office, his proposed land use is commercial office. That's what I'm basing that on. And then.
There's no commentary from the gallery.
And then 106, the property beside, the larger piece beside 760, says single-family residential to single-family residential. Just to catch you up, 115, her property says single-family residential to single-family residential. 117 says they want to rezone from commercial daycare, which we found out, I think
It's gone through the change of use process.
is already a restaurant, so they wanting to go from a restaurant to permitted town center uses. Okay?
Okay, so in all that, you're saying that you're willing to take then the word or whatever based on the application that 3 of the 4 are doing nothing. They're doing this just to do it. You just said that they're going from same to same on 3 of the 4 applications.
That's what the application shows. Yeah.
Right, but in part of the argument that you're using in this, it's that, well, we know they're not going to do anything.
I'm back to the philosophy quote where I'm looking for the motive.
Okay, you're correcting him on that and taking liberties with the application. You have 3 of the 4 that say they're going to stay the same, at least per the application.
Okay? I'll concede that.
What does that tell us?
That tells me that this is a general rezoning.
Excellent clarification. Chris, you good with that now? Great. Okay. Anything else from anybody? No? Yes, sir?
Sure. One more comment. And one of the reasons I lean towards having by right zoning is I have seen conditional rezonings come through the town that have been great plans that have been denied because you get several people that get off on a tangent and focus on something that really is somewhat irrelevant to the plan, yet it's denied and does not pass, where if it were by right, it would. As an example, a lot of times we get hung up on tree safe in this community, which I love tree safe. I absolutely love it. I'm not saying we don't need to do that, but I've seen petitions be denied because the applicant has not exceeded what the code allows. And under that conditional rezoning, that can happen. It can be denied. Whereas if it was by right, they meet the ordinance. The ordinance has been laid out. We have vetted this ordinance. We make text amendments. It's not perfect. But again, it goes back to me, it's a private property rights. I want somebody to be able to develop their property as much as they can with as much latitude as they can. So.
I just want to clarify, again, if we were only looking at one piece and they came in and they said, hey, I want to develop a restaurant, I don't want to go through the conditional zoning process, like, for me, that would be different. It's that there's one applicant here. Where are the others? I don't know. So if it were separated out, for me tonight, I would say yes. It's when they're all together, they're not all here, they're not all telling us what they want to do. That's where I have a problem with it.
Okay. Any other discussion? No, let's go ahead and take a vote on the motion on the table. Do we need it repeated or no? We're good? Okay. All those in favor?
Kind of saw that coming. I like a good discussion, though. I want to get on my soapbox.
And those opposed? Okay. The motion does not carry. So then we would, yes, we would then need
I got you.
different motion.
The Planning Board finds that application 2409 Town Center General Rezoning is inconsistent with the 2040 Community Plan and the 2023 Downtown Master Plan. We find the use of general rezoning to be inconsistent with LU 6.3, LU 7, LU 8.1, LU 8.2, LU 11, EV 1.3, EV 2.2, DT1, DT2, DT 3.1, DT 8.1 and 8.2, DT 10.3, and DT 11.2. It is not reasonable nor in the public interest to approve the rezoning due to the type of zoning requested. Our community plans call for a more careful and structured process when redeveloping properties than a general rezoning would provide. We encourage the applicant and property owners to come back with individual plans that stand on their own merit.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
What was?
The very first sentence.
Yeah.
I didn't, I was looking down. What? Okay. Any discussion, or we hammer all that out? Yes, sir.
A question, really. Again, advisory board, we're not making a decision tonight.
Correct.
If, let's say that this petition is denied, what are the limitations on some of these applicants to be able to come back, maybe individually? Is there a timetable before they can come back and ask for a rezoning on the?
That is an excellent question. I know the answer for conditional rezoning. Do they have to wait the 1 year for a general? Yeah. Sure.
So even for conditional, if there is a substantial change, the board they could come back. I didn't see, and there was no, so I believe the same would be, the same would hold true for general as well. So if there's a substantial change, which going from 4 properties to 1 would probably be a substantial change.
Or no plan to a plan.
Yes. So I don't believe that the 1 year hold would still apply if it was a substantial change in the.
I just know we have one applicant here that's new to this process, and I would not want her to be surprised if this is denied, and now she's in a year of limbo. That's all.
Yep.
We'll get you an answer on that.
Yeah. Nothing tonight is decided, by the way, so don't be concerned.
Just to reiterate on that, what we do is make a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners themselves. They are the ones that make the final decision. So, okay, any other discussion? I'm sorry, I didn't have my mic on. The motion carries 6-2. Next up, we'll consider a recommendation on R24-06 Rosedale infill located at 9923 Ansbro Square.
All right.
Sir, how are you?
Good evening. So just to recap from the public hearing, the applicant Antiquity Woods LLC is proposing to rezone 0.186 acres of the Rosedale Townhome Development from NRTNDO to NRTNDO-CD. This is a quick aerial view of the rezoning site. Quick background, R9812 was the original rezoning that created the Rosedale mixed-use development. Later on, the R0113 rezoning created the Rosedale Townhome Development within Rosedale. So the applicant today is proposing to modify R0113 in order to construct 4 additional townhomes within the development. The stormwater is being met via the existing Rosedale wet ponds. The water quality is being met by a buy-down mitigation, and the applicant is providing 7 parking spots. This is a graphical overview of the site plan. And the existing required urban open space, which is in the red circle, will not be affected by this rezoning. And the overall overall open space requirements for the subdivision will remain in compliance as well if this is approved. The applicant is proposing one modification to Article 4.11. The applicant is requesting to front on an urban open space that will not be generally parallel to the public street. Staff is in support of this modification request as the proposed homes will be oriented towards Ansonboro, which is similar to the existing units. The urban open space will be used to front for the townhomes and will provide a sidewalk connection from Ansonboro to this space, and that space will include a seating area with benches, landscaping, and an art piece. This is the elevations proposed by the applicant. The massing and scale will be similar to the existing townhome structures, though the exterior elevation will be using white hardy board, which will differ from the existing red brick. The rezoning site is located within the town core and mixed-use center land use areas and is supported by the following policies as outlined within my staff report. Though the rezoning is not supported by LU 8.2, LU 8.2 asks that a higher design standard above and beyond of the minimum requirements be provided. In order for LU 8.2 to support this rezoning, staff has asked that the applicant provide a conditional note formalizing the urban open space in all of its elements. The applicant has verbally agreed to this conditional note. And with that, staff is in recommendation of this rezoning as long as the conditional note is provided and all outstanding staff comments are addressed. And if you guys have any questions for me, I can answer that, and I do believe the applicant has a presentation as well.
All right, thank you. Questions for staff? Greg.
The one modification request? We should, if we go down the route of approval, we should include that in the approval.
Yes, yep.
Okay.
So that was brought up by the, as a question in the public hearing. That was just noted as that was a prominent question brought up beforehand. It's not part of our recommendation for approval, but it would fit in with the LU 8.2 exceeding the design requirements.
So don't we have something in the rezoning that states, keeping in with surrounding buildings and trying to fit in? I mean, do we as a town and as a staff thinks
The
that?
massing and scale
Yeah, but isn't there a character element to that as well?
Part of it, yeah.
And we think that hardy board matches with the brick?
So we're not necessarily saying that it's matching. We're just saying the overall massing of the homes are consistent, and staff does not have issue as is.
On that same subject, is the spacing the same as the rest of the buildings in there? The 16 feet we heard about earlier today between this?
No, so this is, obviously, it's at a different angle, and that's part of their modification request. So it is not the same spacing in between that the other townhomes provide.
At its nearest point, is it more or less?
That I can't answer for you. I can get that for you, though.
Okay. And then the open space aspect. So I know that the other open space covers the requirement originally, but was this open space negotiated for, or is that something the developer just gave us without a quid pro quo?
So are you referring to the urban open space in the circle or the common?
Oh, no,
open
oh, no, what
space?
they're building on.
Yeah, sure.
And it's
It's
98.
merely labeled common open space. The 1998 zoning ordinance just required that any vacant land be labeled common open space,
Okay.
but that common open space is not a requirement of the overall open space.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Just a quick question, a couple parking questions. So it shows here on this, whenever this was developed, that they were going to put parking spaces there. There were no parking spaces there. I guess they had enough street parking or something to do
So
away with
they,
those.
The required parking spaces for the original subdivision was 55. They were stating that they were going to provide 73. I believe there was 13 within that little square that they're developing.
Yep.
So removing that, or even if they didn't include it, they would still be compliant with their
And by adding these 4, they only have to put back 7.
Correct, yep. It's 1.5 spaces per unit. So they're actually in excess of the requirement.
And can you go back to the site plan and show me where those 7 are?
Sure. Actually, I can show you. So 4 of the spaces will be on separate little parking pads. 1 unit will have a driveway, and a singular unit will have a garage.
So the garage counts as a parking spot?
Yep.
Okay.
Can you clarify the staff comments beneath LU 8.2?
In terms of asking for the conditional note?
Yeah, can you just summarize that for me, like what?
Yeah, so by asking for the conditional note, we just want to ensure that, well, I'll say, if the conditional note was not provided, the applicant could change the urban open space via minor modifications, which would not require them to come back in front of the board. By making it a conditional note, it would, and if they wanted to change it, that would be a major modification, which would require them to come back in front of the board. So we just want to ensure that we get the best designed urban open space with this project.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions for staff, Lee?
Just back to the White Hardy Board. Have we tested asking the applicant to change the veneer to something that better matches the existing?
I think that would be a question for them, and I believe they could address that during their presentation.
Okay, okay, I'll wait. That's fine. I'll wait. Yep.
Any other questions of staff? Otherwise, we'll invite the applicant up. No, we're good. If the applicant would like to come up. On the timer. 15. So once you're ready, if you would, your name for the public record, and then you'll have 15 minutes for your presentation.
Thank you very much. My name is Sonny Crater. I'm from Denver, a longtime resident prior to that of Huntersville. Back in 2001, I was fortunate enough to be a part of the original acquisition and design of this particular section of Rosedale. And as far as new urban developments, it fits it to a T. The square in the middle is just great. It was fun to do. As you can see, it turned out exactly the way it was intended to. And the owner, applicant Joe Roy, is here also. But as a part of seeing what he's done over the years, everything he does architecturally is above and beyond what anybody does. We can ride around and see a number of builders that sort of cut the corners, and from a material or an architectural standpoint, that's never happened. There's never been a compromise, and it didn't matter whether it was a small townhome like this or if it was something really expensive. There's probably more detail put in these townhomes than even higher end type products, more thought. The space that you see there, as Nathan went over, is what it is. And Joe was very intentional about creating something in the future in the way of building there. This is a page of the restrictive covenants which spells out his intention to do that in the future. So again, that was pre-planned. Again, here's just sort of a base look at the site, which is, I'll get to the other adjustments here in a second. This is Antiquity. You're probably familiar with Antiquity. Those two areas that are circled is exactly what he's done in the past and exactly what he's proposing to do here as well. And that's a view in Antiquity from the street. This is very similar circumstances with a square in the middle and then these units set back. There are other as far as the other examples in here, and again, he's kind of a master at this stuff. And recently, there was a historic house in Lincolnton. The townhomes went on both sides. They requested that the brick be matching this historic house. So they put all brick on it, and you don't notice the house anymore. There's a point to having a little bit of diversity in your architecture. In Vermilion, it's very very common there. As brick is, hardy is an indestructible material. So it's there for the long haul. As far as did not include this in the presentation, but as far as the elevations, these are exactly the same elevations as you would have seen here in terms of the 3/3 with the windows and the doors and the size of the windows and where they don't crash into the fascia and things like that. So from that standpoint, they're still the same. So, and I know, let's see here, yeah, that's just another view of, and also currently he's developing Walk 23, and if you happen to go there, now some of these buildings are up, and he's got the green in there. Another example of the great things he does. And here was something higher end that he did a long time ago. He went to England to make sure he got the architecture right when he went to do this project. Here's your site plan. This plaza is going to be a great space for those in the neighborhood and those that live there. He's doing a section which will be part of his notes later with Nathan, where there's concrete pavers. Then there's a seating area and plantings and artwork. So it's a really cool outdoor feature, and I think that the neighbors will enjoy it very much. again, that's the plan in colorization. And I guess here's the renderings, which again kind of go back to the antiquity and still maintain that same bit of look. One thing that I also want to point out in today's environment and pricing is that these will be priced hopefully below $350. And by today's standards, that's very hard to come by. Joe is here, and I wanted to see if he would address the issue, not of affordability, but attainability.
Joe Roy, I am Meeting Street and the owner of this parcel. Thank y'all for allowing us to speak tonight. So I have professionally and personally been trying to do something affordable. And as I've gotten older, it's become more of a mission to do affordable housing. I've tried it in Davidson, I've tried it in Cornelius, and I believe the town of Huntersville is headed in that direction to make that possible. And I wanted to try it on one of these units, one of these 4 here. And my goal is for it to look exactly like all of the rest of them, so no one knows that this is an affordable unit. If you drive in the front, you drive in the back, you walk to the front of the urban park, no one knows that it's an affordable unit. And I've spoken to a couple of the commissioners, Mayor Pro Tem, and told them what I'd like to do. And so I'm prepared to, even tonight, because we haven't made this clear yet, but I'm prepared to commit one of these units to being attainable or affordable. I can't at this moment tell you exactly what that means. I don't believe Huntersville even knows what that would be, but I'm committed to making one of these quote unquote attainable. So the siding thing, since I'm standing here, if I was left to my druthers doing this project all at the same time, I would have put it siding. It needs to be siding, this one building that's setting back. Otherwise, if it was a brick unit or a brick building back there, you just wouldn't see it from the street. It's not going to be like Sonny's image there. It's not some beaming, look at this building. It's just a nice, tasteful way to do a development. And we sell siding units for the same price that we sell brick units. A brick unit costs me a hell of a lot more to build, but I do them because it's the right thing, in the right places. It's not the right spot, set back off of this public street. Anyway, I'm here if you have any questions there.
All right, thank you. Questions for the applicant? Okay.
I apologize about this, and it may not have any bearing on this decision, but does this community have a HOA or a COA?
Yes, it does. As a matter of fact, that little excerpt was part of the restrictive covenants, yes.
Okay, and then these
For the existing town.
These 4 new would be grandfathered into the existing HOA or COA?
That really needs to be worked out with the current HOA. And I've expressed to them, we're interested in joining, or we're prepared to go it alone. I mean, I would think it would be best that we would join, but that's really up to them.
The antiquity picture that you showed, what's the distance between those 2 homes where that one's peeking through?
distance,
I don't know if I can.
separation between the buildings.
Between the ones that are running perpendicular, that gap looks considerably bigger than the 16-foot gap that is right there. It just, I guess I'm just wondering, I trust you, you've developed a lot of properties. It just seems like you're going in an alleyway to get to those 4 units, whereas this looks like it's closer to 30 to 40 feet width. It still looks abnormal, but it semi-works, but I feel like the other one is about 16 feet wide. The
entrance.
The entrance, right?
Yeah, in antiquity, we have a 3-foot minimum side yard. I'm not sure what. We do have.
I mean, obviously, the side yards are bigger on the one you're proposing than those. Those almost look like they're touching. But I'm just saying, as you're driving around that square, you come to a 30-foot gap, it seems semi-normal as opposed to a 16-foot gap, but I don't know.
We're talking about the front edge of the 2 buildings.
That's correct, yeah. You showed an elevation view, Google Maps with it in there, and it seemed bigger than it actually is. It almost looks like it's barely wide enough for that sidewalk, but it just, I don't know. It just seems like it's an afterthought, and I don't know, but you're the developer.
Those are on Crew Cottage, right?
It is Crew Cottage.
What does that mean?
And another point
I'm still
about
not gonna be
this,
able to tell.
Joe's on a committee with Huntersville, Cornelius, and Davidson, to try to make this a reality. Everybody's talking about doing it. I'm consulting with the town of Mooresville and their attainable housing, and we've got avenues through different ways to actually make this happen. It's just everybody talks about doing it, nobody does it. And we've got a fellow here, he's ready to get it done.
Right, in hindsight, so I was the original developer of Antiquity. And if we had a requirement to provide affordable housing, I mean, say back then, if we'd have had to have done 10, I could have hidden them. In fact, I could drive you through there and pick the 10 units that could have been affordable. No one would have ever known. It wasn't a requirement back then. It wasn't certainly, when I was younger, I wasn't volunteering to do this. But, I mean, we do need to get off the horse and do something. You know, it's.
Well,
So I'd like a little encouragement to follow through. And I really am looking, you know, for you know, just, I don't want an attaboy. Let's just make, you know, when we've got a perfect spot for some density. I mean, we could walk to everything. I'm sorry. When we could walk to dang near everything in this community, you know, I wish I had 20 that I could put right here. You know, anyway.
And again, that's been with working with Mooresville and some of the sites I'm helping them with, it's been, yeah, it doesn't have to look any different. It can look just as good as everything else. Now, one little element that kind of gets in the way that Joe didn't address is the biggest obstacle to getting the attainable housing is how the costs get run up. And a lot of it comes from processes like what we're doing right now. And everything adds up to a point that sometimes it just, but he's ready to cut through that.
Chris, just to answer your question, roughly about 18 feet.
The antiquity is 18 feet
Antiquity.
window.
I pulled up the plat map. Touche. Yeah. Roughly. Okay. Any other questions for the applicant?
I have some.
Jody, sure.
Sorry, Jody, your time is up.
Yeah. Took too long to ask.
I just have a couple questions. I know that in some of the other meetings, some of the things that were asked were, like, there's people that live there currently, that is their access, they mentioned many times, to like the mailbox, to add the sidewalk there. Are you making any kind of, to make current residents meet any of their needs while you're adding this into the complex? Like the mailboxes, for instance, and I know the alleyway was discussed to make sure that that stays in good working order after construction happens. And then of course, a lot of them were worried about the not matching the rest of it. That one little section is not working. Are any of those in consideration, like the mailbox or the
Well,
taking care of?
well, we will provide our own mailbox
But
that
I
would
mean,
be.
access for the existing residents.
I think that's a really bad idea, to tell you, I mean, so, and I believe I've already heard this from some of the residents, but if we put a trail, if we put a path through there, that also means the people from the back of the Harris Teeter and the service area, that they can come and walk into the community. And so, I would think you'll have just as many people that'll be upset with it as they would be. Right now, you walk 5 units east of here, and there's an existing alley. So it's just walk around the building. So if you said, Joe, we could support you if you'll put that in there, I'll put it in, but I don't think it's a great idea. So.
Just one question of clarification. You've made a major emphasis about affordability of the homes, but I thought somewhere along the way, and I may have misheard, that it's about $300,000 or a little bit more of that.
Yes, sir.
Quick calculation, I could be certainly off, but that translates into you got to make about $80,000 a year in order to afford. That's not affordable to a lot of people.
I know.
So are you considering deeply affordable?
One of those 4, I'm hoping I get below.
But is that deeply affordable or just slightly discounted more? Deeply affordable have a clear definition as to what it is.
That's why I'm not prepared right now to tell you where.
We want to incentivize you to go deeply.
Right. I'm doing what, you know what I want to be able to do is I want to be able to do this again. On this one, I own the property, so I can put a free lot underneath it. It's not free anymore because, like Sonny's pointing out, the expenses that I have to get here and to get this approved, to get water and sewer to that unit, all of the expenses I've got there. So it's not really a free lot for that one home, but I'm trying.
If he will. Yeah, I'm working with Kathy Brantley in Mooresville. She's with the head of Community Foundations, which is in Mooresville. And I've discussed this with her from a sales price standpoint, and it fits in with what she's doing. And she's, if I need her to step in and bring us somebody, she's ready to do that with money from the state to help them get it done. So, yes, 300 fits in that window, and I'm sure if he can do it under that, he certainly will.
Do you have any issues or concerns with the open space condition that was requested by planning staff?
The urban.
Yep.
You're talking about the.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's a great idea.
And how about the conditions that were in the engineering report? Specifically, they seem to be tied to running utilities. Let's see, it's going through an easement, so we have that the proposed water meter vault, Nathan?
Yeah, I can kind of speak to that. There will be some utilities that have to go within the public drainage easement, which is on the north side of this. on the top of the screen. During the commercial site plan process, the construction documents, they would enter an agreement with the town to be able to put those utilities there.
Okay.
But it's not a condition as part of the rezoning.
Gotcha. All right, thank you. Any other questions for applicant? No, I will accept a motion if you have one.
Have a motion, Mr. Chairman. In concern the proposed rezoning petition R24-06, Rosedale Enfield, the planning board recommends approval of the rezoning to accommodate the addition of 4 additional units. We find the request to be consistent with policies LU 2.1, LU 5.1, LU 7.1, LU 9.1, and LU 11.2 of the Huntersville 2040 Community Plan. We also recommend modification, the request to, how do I say that? Requested modification to Article 4.11, as the proposal will have the new properties in a similar orientation to the existing properties. Our recommendation for approval is also dependent upon the following condition: that the applicant provides a conditional note stating their commitment to formalizing their urban open space. It is reasonable in the public interest to approve the rezoning plan, as it is consistent with the existing development patterns in the vicinity and because the requested modification is in keeping with the spirit of the ordinance.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? Greg, you want to start us off?
It looks like a good plan to me. I don't have a problem with the color scheme or the size of the units, and cherry on top, maybe offering some affordable housing. Sounds like a good idea to me. And location, there is a lot of shopping options there, so the density of the project seems a good fit as far as I'm concerned.
Huntersville needs a large variety of housing options, and I think this is a small way that we can contribute to the overall stock. So I like it. I like the design. I like how it fits into the area. And when you look from above, it really does fit in well.
I'm in support of the project. I feel like we're kind of running out of land in Huntersville. I think we need to get creative and flexible if needed to try to maximize what we do have remaining. This is a small lot, get 4. I do like the idea that you get 4. It's crazy to say affordable is $350,000, but unfortunately that's about where we are, especially if the developer's able to drive one of those down. It's a bonus. You know, the location's already served by infrastructure. You know, this isn't, we're not having to reinvest in a lot of outside infrastructure. I think equally important is our community's familiar with the developer. I like to see us continue to encourage good developers who do good projects to not be discouraged about doing business in Huntersville, but to see that, yes, it can be a lengthy process, sometimes expensive, but that at the end of the day, you're developing in a good community. We want those type developers to continue coming back. And actually, the change in the facade or the material, actually, I like it. I think diversity in design is good. You know, when everything's just cookie cutter, sometimes it's boring. I like the idea that it's different. So that's an opinion, though.
Jody, go ahead.
I don't know. I was for this before I came in, and then I'm kind of against this a little bit. But I think I'm going to vote for this, but because density is important, and it is, it will help the area. I don't like that it's not brick like the other ones, and I think it went from 350, hopefully, then down to 300, and then to another, figure while we were here the last, 15 minutes. So I really question what price they'll put on these townhomes. I hope they are affordable. I wish there was some way we could kind of, make sure they are affordable. But I wish they would consider the residents that live there now and do something for the people that are there to make it more to be them part of that community. I hope the HOA does take them in consideration and make that more of a group feeling there. And let me see what else I had. And during construction, I hope they do consider the alleyways, because they are private alleyways, and we need to keep those for those residents that are there now. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
Quick clarifying question for staff. We don't have an official mechanism that we could point to or add into to modify the motion as it relates to any sort of affordable housing.
Correct, we do not have an affordable housing policy at this time.
There's nothing we can point to. Okay. All right. As far as, I'll just go ahead and make some comments on this. I've seen these townhomes all over Lake Norman and their developments. I obviously recognized one of the examples, and I was able to pull it up right here. I knew right where it was in Antiquity, and I continue to see variations in materials and facades or whatever woven into a number of these neighborhoods and developments. So for me, that none of that bothers me. So.
That's good. I certainly appreciate the concern that the residents who are there now would have. If you see a lot in your neighborhood that's vacant for long periods of time, I've seen many communities, you just automatically think it's going to stay that way forever. And it's unfortunate, but often one would need to look at the plans, and I applaud the builder. They clearly documented along the way that the plan all along at some point was to do additional development. Unfortunate, but true. So it's unfortunate that we have to discover these kind of things in this kind of a forum, but they do happen. That being said, I just simply will cut through the chase. If the developer truly is using this as a template, a role model, stop dipping your toe into the water of affordable and actually put your whole foot in. That's the one message I would leave you going forward. Thank you very much.
I can echo the comments of my constituents up here as well. Yeah, I'm no architect, so white hardy board is good. That's good stuff. I've used it in the last couple of years. Actually hung it myself. Got no problem with that. The spacing, I really have no idea. Again, I'm no architect. I would like one clarification, Greg, on the condition you read right after you covered our 2040 plan.
That was in reference, that's what I was checking on clarification, if we need to include that in our proposal, that they have a requested a modification to Article 4.11 for facing Front Street properties. Help me say it correctly. The orientation of which way the property faces is not going to be up to that article.
Oh, okay. I thought you were asking them. Okay.
No.
Okay. Yeah, and with that, I support this. It makes perfect sense, and it looks like a great job of planning. Also, like to commend your current efforts to address affordable housing. I know it's a tough issue. I'd love to hear how you're going to figure out. I mean, I know there's the sell price, and then you look at the deed restrictions, and it's not just a one-time commitment. It is the lifetime of that structure's commitment. That's a tough nut to crack, and I appreciate you taking a swing at it. Thank you.
Okay, if no other discussion, we'll go ahead and take a vote on this. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. All right, can I get a motion for Mr. Henson to return?
I'll make a motion that we bring Jay Henson back.
All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, Mr. Henson, please join us. All right, coming up on 4C, we'll consider a recommendation on R24-12. It's the Walden Berm revision located south of Raymond Church Road. And Mr. Pollard, you brought something to us.
Previously communicated, I have property that abuts up against the property in question, and as such, will appear to be in some way conflicted. As a result, I'll simply ask that I recuse myself of this particular item.
Okay. Motion to recuse Mr. Pollard.
Make a motion to recuse Mr. Pollard?
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none? Mr. Pollard, we'll bring you back, don't worry.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to disclose to the board that I actually was notified of this through the, being in close proximity to Walden Creek. My property actually adjoins Walden Creek, but I'm literally probably a mile away. So given that, I do not feel like I have any conflict. If you all see it different, please let me know, but I don't think I'm conflicted in any way.
Does anybody on the board have an issue with Mr. Hensley staying? No, okay. All right. Mr. Richards.
Thank you. This is R2412 Walden Berm revision. I'll get a quick overview here. The applicant has applied for a modification to the existing berm that was previously approved. You can see here the properties are zoned neighborhood residential conditional district, and they're not asking for any changes to that. Quick history, back in 2007, the original Walden subdivision was approved by Toll Brothers with a standard 20-foot buffer on the western side in the area that we're talking about this evening. Then in 2014, Bowman Properties picked the property up, made some revisions, again with the standard 20-foot buffer. Subsequently, in 2018, TF Walden purchased the property, and through negotiations with the neighbors, planning board, town board, expanded the 20-foot buffer to a 30-foot buffer with a berm. Subsequently, preliminary plans, which are the construction plans, were approved over 9 phases between the years of 2019 and 2022. Some points of clarification, that the buffer typically are undisturbed. This buffer, due to the nature of including a berm, will be disturbed. And additionally, that there is no opacity requirement for this buffer. They'll be using the ordinance's standard plantings. You can see here in the areas outlined in red is the area in question. To the west, west and north, you've got the single-family homes there. And you can see the development to the south and to the east. And in the middle there's some tree save area. Again, the modification request is for variable slopes. Typically, berms that have a 3-to-1 slope, if we do the math and the approved 30-foot buffer, it's not possible to put the berm in that 30-foot area that was previously approved. Do the math, that works out to 32 feet. Additionally, due to the off-site drainage being received by the Walden property, you would need to install a ditch that would expand that between 32 and 35 feet, depending on water quantities that would be received on the Walden property. So again, what we're asking for, the applicant is asking for, is a modification to the slopes. There will be a 4-foot tall berm, which was agreed to back in 2018, in the 30-foot expanded buffer. Again, they're just asking for the pitch of the slopes to be a little bit steeper. They will be meeting all of the planting requirements. You can see the berm that's out there today. These pictures were taken last Friday. They did install fresh vegetation. Some was planted over the summer, had passed. Again, you can see the fresh vegetation that's been planted there. Staff is in recommendation is for approval with some modifications of the variable slopes along the berm. We're asking that a revision to the approved plans be provided. Additional evergreens be added along the berm to enhance the screening for the adjacent properties. And a drainage well be installed. It's currently installed in most places. It does need some revisions and some updates because as over time we're doing construction, those things do fill in, so that will be cleaned up. And that swale will be maintained and owned by the HOA. And I'm here if you guys have any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions for staff?
Oh, good.
Sure.
So, one of the recommendations was additional evergreen trees to be added, but there's no quantity.
Correct. That is something we're going to be working out with the applicant. Town Manager Anthony Roberts was out there and looked around approximately addition of between 70 and 75 additional evergreen trees is what we're looking at. Again, we'll need to work with the applicant's landscape architect and landscape crew and arborist to make sure trees are planted appropriately so they can survive.
And we believe that that fulfills that opaque promise that was made by somebody that,
I can't speak to an opaque promise being made.
Yeah,
I can
okay.
say the ordinance requires, and it does not require an opaque buffer.
okay, all right, that's good to know. And then going back to the 3-to-1, right? It's 3-to-1 for a reason, right? Runoff, speed of the water coming off when it rains. Have we checked some numbers? Do we have, the right material out there that it's not going to erode on that steeper slope?
Sure. Both the town's engineer as well as the applicant's engineer have reviewed this, and in their professional opinion, the 2-to-1 slope would be fine. It would be stable. It could be stabilized. It could be maintained by the landscape crew from the homeowners association. As through any construction process, it does take some time to get that stabilized. They're going through that right now. You can see in the pictures, as you can see, the lower ground cover is starting to take over and establish and securing the dirt. But yes, there are times during heavy rains that there could be some erosion. Again, that's part of the construction process. It takes a number of years for that to get fully stable. We have bonds in place. We have HOA maintenance responsibilities, so on and so forth. So yes, that will become stable and it will be maintained.
And if for some reason it washes, that's the responsibility of the HOA and
The owner
5
at the
years?
time, correct.
Yeah.
Currently, it's the developer. It will eventually be the HOA.
The bonds that you spoke of, those only hold for as long as the developer is the owner, correct?
Correct, correct.
And there's been a lot of involvement with town, with the developer, and with adjacent property owners. And in going through various plans, I've seen notes that were added by all three parties and such. Was it ever discussed during this to lower the height of the berm down a little bit?
Not to my knowledge.
And maybe more plantings instead?
And not to my knowledge.
Just, okay. So everything has basically been focused on getting it to what was negotiated back in 2018 without actually being checked if it was
Correct. That
feasible.
was an oversight by all professionals, including my staff.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Which side is the drain on? Is it on the side with the farm or is it on the development?
It is on the exterior, so the side with the farm, because the water is coming from the farm to the subdivision. It's being captured in the ditch and routed through the berm breaks.
So go back to your photo that has the cut. So there, the farm is on the right. You're saying there's a ditch on the right hand, on the picture on the right. There's a ditch
Ditch is
down.
right here, and you can see it right here as well. Those are lower points. Those are the berm breaks. I'm sorry, the ditch is in the
Ditch,
back.
the
I'm sorry, yeah,
ditch,
the ditch
yeah.
is along here and along the back, and then these are the berm breaks that allow the water to penetrate through into Walden.
And then so with respect to those, as it would be with any of our other stormwater measures and any development, if somehow this isn't functioning,
The property owner at the time would be responsible for repairing.
right?
Correct.
Who makes sure that the ditch is functioning? Is that, I mean, I know they have stormwater inspections, right, once a week after large rain events, whatever the requirement of the SWIP
Our
is.
erosion control inspectors will.
And you guys are inspecting that, and that would be through the life of construction.
Correct.
But once the HOA takes over, do the HOA have any requirements to inspect that? Or is that on the neighbors to say, hey, your ditch isn't working anymore?
It's a neighbor agreement after that. If there's water backing up, they can reach out to the HOA, and then that'll be addressed. They can reach out to town staff, and then we can reach out to the HOA.
Okay.
Come on, Trina.
Yeah, is there a reason that the ditch isn't on the other side?
Sure, real easy. I'll go back here. So the water comes from these properties into the berm. So the ditch needs to be on this side, and then it is routed out here. This water is captured and routed through various berm breaks along this area.
More questions for staff? Sure.
This is a good visual. That's what I want to see. We've seen side cuts of it, but how long is this thing total? I mean,
You know what? I was going to measure it earlier today, and I didn't. So
let me ask it this. Let me ask it this way.
It's well over 1,000.
So on in my view here on the north side, I assume, how many properties are over there, property owners versus, yeah?
So on the north side?
Yeah, yeah.
So this parcel, just one?
Oh, that's just one, okay. And here on the south, it looks like there's some lots that are prepped for something at some point.
These have been graded?
Right, right. And then there are the ones that, in Walden, are they having problems with this buffer as well? Berm as well?
That area has not been platted yet, so there are no property owners.
On the I said north, so it has to be west side. Those look like completed houses. Are we talking about the same? Okay, okay. What relationship is the Farrell Town Parkway completion to this?
You can see this area right here. This is where the Farrell Town will be.
Okay,
through.
so it won't be affected?
Correct.
Okay, okay. And then with the request for opaqueness and things like that, it made me think, are we fighting sight lines against drainage in some of these areas where we want a higher buffer maybe to diminish some sight lines, and there's other places where we want a lower buffer to deal with drainage, so.
The area to the farms to the north are higher in elevation. They have, these homes are lower. Oop, how'd that happen there? Let me clear that. Thank you. These homes are all lower from the berm. So again, this land in the red was raised up 4 feet from grade, and then where the homes are to be built has been lowered, so you will not see the backs of the houses.
Right, right, okay. So that covers the sightline thing. Okay, okay, so and is it a problem that we're trying to use one design to cross-section to cover this entire 1,200 feet or whatever? Would it satisfy the problem better if it varied over the 1,200 feet?
In my opinion, no. Again, typical buffers are 20 feet with planted vegetation. The residents and the applicant and the boards all agreed to a wider area of 30 feet with a 4-foot berm. So they've given more distance, more separation. We've got great separations. Typically, you do not buffer likeness to likeness. If you got like uses to like uses, it's not atypical to put more screening between.
Okay, okay.
But again, they asked for and received a wider buffer with a berm with our standard plantings. We are recommending additional evergreen plantings be installed, and we're going to work with the applicant to quantities and spacing over the next couple of days.
Okay, sure, thank you.
Real quick question, Brian. I'm going back. Is our task to really, quote, review and approve the 2-to-1 versus 3-to-1?
Correct. So they're asking for a very
So it's really just focusing on the 2-to-1. Okay, the drainage stuff, I'm assuming it's been resolved, or that's a separate from this request?
Correct. The drainage is not part of this request.
Okay.
The applicant has agreed to install a ditch that will accommodate the received.
Right, and the buffer planting that was proposed, was that from the original plan?
It is.
So from the ordinance, and now we're increasing that?
Correct.
Okay. That's all. Thanks.
Sure.
Real quick check on the materials. There was a comment made about compaction reports and all that stuff. They cut out maybe some, virgin material that might have been, pretty well compacted in its place. And then they came back with some borrow material. I mean, I assume there's compaction reports, that they have to do some kind of testing on these. There's not.
This is not structural in nature.
Yeah.
If you had the berm were 5 feet or taller, then they would have to have compaction reports, material reports as well. Again, this is not holding up a road, it's not holding up a home, so it doesn't need to meet any of those requirements.
And if it were to wash out because it wasn't compacted well, right, to a 80% density, the owners would repair it.
Okay.
The applicants are here if you guys have.
I was just going to ask, there's,
Craig Campbell with the Walden Project, just here to answer questions. Brian did an adequate job, we believe, and thank him for his efforts presenting this.
all right, thanks, sir. Questions for the applicant?
I mean, I guess the biggest obvious question, and I'm sure it has something to do with money, is why wouldn't you just widen it to the side and keep the 3-to-1s? I mean, you're talking a few thousand yards of dirt, just, it's too much after the fact, it encroaches on some lot lines. What are you thinking?
All the above.
All right.
Not as simple as it seems. Yeah.
All right, yeah, I hear you.
I hate that we're here doing this. I know you hate that we're here doing this. The staff hates it. There was mistakes made, and it's terrible, but we're here today. We got to figure out a solution, hopefully. And how many property owners adjoin your berm? 2?
If we can go back to that.
Non-Walden property owners?
I'm sorry, non-Walden property owners, yes.
Right, the neighboring properties.
Upwards of 5?
Yeah, 4 to 5, I think it's, yeah.
And I've sat through the public hearing. I didn't make the community meeting, but I've sat through the public hearing, and this is a little bit unique because in a lot of ways, we're trying to solve an issue for a couple of property owners. But in my opinion, whether it's 1, 2, or 100, we need to solve it for them. We need, we still represent them. Has anything creative been discussed about doing something even on their property? I'm not talking about buying their property. I'm talking about doing something on their property that may have alleviate their concerns at your cost, not at theirs. And it may not even be, and I'm not trying to negotiate today, I'm just saying, is there another solution that we can look at that satisfies these 2 to 5 property owners that still works for everybody?
We did have a meeting out on site with the property owners and town staff sometime this summer, I think it was. We did talk about a couple of options. We did offer to plant trees on their property to help with the screening. One of the property owners had wanted that, and we tried to pursue that and didn't come to an agreement.
My concern is that, if this goes through and is approved, that there may not solve the issue, and you may want to work through it, or maybe you don't, or maybe when the association, and now we've got a couple of property owners that are, trying to solve something, and they don't have the power of what they kind of have right now. So I'm having a hard time approving what we're doing here, because I don't think we've really solved the issue that probably is why we're here. Just a comment, no question, just a comment, yeah.
And Scott, just to answer your question, at least according to Polaris, 5 parcels, 4 owners.
And again, I'm not proposing that these owners give up anything. I'd like to see them be more satisfied with the outcome at the end of the day. I'm not saying that, buy their property, and that's not what I'm saying. Just is there some solution? That's all. And again, that's a big ask for somebody. I own real estate. I just went on my soapbox about private property rights. I'm not saying take anybody's property, but is there some solution? That's all.
Just ask Scott, and I don't mean this to be cynical, what do you think the issue is?
What do I think the issue
Yes.
Again, sitting through the public hearing and listening to people come up, I think it sounds like it's really maybe a drainage issue as much as anything. And again, I apologize, I have not reached out to the property owners. I probably should have, to be more educated about it. And Brian may be able to, maybe an applicant could kind of come in and say,
Just real quick, just to follow up, the reason why I asked that is because it seems like the proposed berm is kind of at code, and they've suggested more screening, so I'm trying to figure out what the outstanding issue is.
Yeah, as far as comments regarding erosion or deterioration of the berm, it was installed over the summer here, and we've had record rains, as everyone knows, and it is withheld. There's been some minor areas of erosion, and we're correcting those. We're actually going to armor one area that has been a little more consistent with erosion. We're going to actually propose to put some riprap in there and make it even stronger in that area. So, and as Brian stated, the 3-to-1 versus a 2-to-1, which is what we're here for, is an erosion type of issue. But we're going to maintain that. We are on our bond through the maintenance period, which will extend this a little bit longer, and then the HOA will maintain that. It just takes time to get the seeding and the grasses and earth to hold up and, establish itself so that erosion won't occur continually. So we just have to maintain this early on in the early stages of it, and we plan to do that. And again, we've seen, as it's been built, we've seen the areas where we're having some erosion issues, and we're making those stronger and strengthening those up.
All right, any other questions for the applicant? I just have one. I was out there on Saturday, but I've heard from a few different people, and actually, you mentioned it yesterday, that additional things have been going on. Can you update us on what's taking place this week?
We have been replacing some of the plantings. I think, as we've noted, there was continuation of that. We have gone out and continued some of the berm breaks where the erosion was occurring. We're doing some more repair on that, extending that repair, and again, kind of double armoring one of those locations. That'll probably continue for another week or so. Once it got delayed with the rains that have come in recently, we've got to let it dry out a little bit.
Okay. All right. If no other questions for staff or the applicant, I'll go ahead and take a motion.
I'll volunteer to make the motion.
That slide got cut out.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
You leave me hanging, dog?
Sorry.
Sorry, do it.
I did not have time to update my presentation since last night. Yeah, that works.
Yeah, I was pointing at something else, but good. All right. And consider the proposed rezoning petition R24-012 Walden Berm revision. Staff, planning board recommends approval with the conditions outlined below, and that all minor staff comments remaining are addressed. The proposal is consistent with the 2040 Community Plan Policy LU 11.1. Modification request to allow for variable slope widths. Staff recommends approval on a variable slope of 2-to-1 to 3-to-1, as proposed. The revision to approved plans RTAP is submitted and approved to update the current preliminary plan set. Additional evergreen trees are added to the berm to enhance screening from adjacent properties. A drainage wall is installed and maintained by the developer. It is reasonable and in the public interest to approve the rezoning plan because the berm modification does not erode the efficiency and intent of the berm. Additional evergreen trees will enhance the screening of the buffer from adjacent properties. I would also like to include HOA.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Arm wrestle. Jay? Sure. Okay. All right, so we have a motion. We do have a second discussion. Mr. Holman, you want to start?
Sure. So while I'm not a landscape engineer, I did work with some dirt last week. No, I appreciate, and I think, and Jay brought this out. I think what we're doing, and I tend to parse these things out, we're not fixing the berm here. We're fixing the site plan for the berm. Just shifting the requirement of 3-to-1 to a variable slope from 3-to-1 to 2-to-1. to enhance the effectiveness of the berm. And I think that's the right thing to do, and I'll be in favor of it.
Yeah, I agree, Lee. I mean, we're here to say, you know, it's 2-to-1 acceptable. I think the berm has been agreed to in the past. That's in the past. Berm is in place. The plants need to comply with the ordinance and the stabilization of the slope. So there's really nothing more to add to that.
Okay, any other discussion?
I am trying to put myself in the adjacent property owner's shoes, and I'm struggling with this. Scott, it's what you were talking about. I'm really struggling with this. I would love to have like a clear, here's my line, but I feel like I would really love for the developer and the property owners to work this out, or for us to have some kind of better compromise than you just have to accept this. I really don't like that part of it. And I definitely don't have that answer. I don't know what that would be. So I hope one of you guys can come up with that.
I don't have an answer. I think what we're facing is the correct solution, but I think there's still a remaining problem with the adjoining property owners, and for that reason, I'm not going to be in support of it. Again, I wish I had a better path. I wish I had a solution for everybody. I don't, but I think right now there's a tension on this, and I'd like to keep attention on this to hopefully find a solution for those property owners. But I'm not necessarily I mean, again, what is proposed is a good solution if we didn't have that, what I think is an outstanding problem.
I'm just thinking through my head the geometry. If you'll go back to where you show the cuts there, I mean, the right solution would be to, on the developer side, to add approximately 2 foot, right? You cut the left side of the farms and you flop that over and you put 2 or 3 foot on that side and make everything 3-to-1. You're talking 1,500 yards worth of dirt, but a lot of effort to get back there, tearing up plantings. And then the berm is correct, and he doesn't have to put back, or the developer doesn't have to put back as many trees, right, as he's proposing now. So I feel like this is a good compromise, right? I mean, we don't make him go in there and do $100,000, $200,000, maybe encroach on some lot lines, move some things around, but he's giving more of the opaque buffer, which is what I was kind of hearing that they wanted. Obviously not 100% opaque, but more than he would have to give in the original approval. So I feel like it's a good compromise, instead of him going back, ripping out what he's done, adding that, and not giving the trees. I don't think that they would like that either. So.
Very surprised there's been 70 or 75 trees put in. I think that's wonderful, and I love that people are going to the site to make those decisions and see what's best for the site.
I can't help but notice Marilyn's face, though, when we talk about drainage. And maybe that's the part that I don't feel like is being addressed adequately in her mind. And that's, I think, I would love to see you guys come to some kind of agreement on that.
And I think with what we have been tasked with tonight and our purview as a planning board of this particular thing, we are tackling what's within our purview. I think some of what, at least some of us on the board are wanting to see come out of this has at least the potential or the possibility to come out with the town board, and because of the latitudes afforded to the electeds and going through that process, with what we have, and I know the general public may not completely follow that, but within our purview, I don't see, and we also haven't come to it, there isn't a mechanism for us to address some of the things that still may trouble some of us about that. But I think what we've done is at least acknowledge as a collective overall, and the town board, of course, will hear that and take that along with whatever our recommendation is, as they always do, and look to try and utilize some of their additional powers to help move this to a better situation. But more discussion?
I just want to say for scale really quick, I mean, with that being, 15 to 1,700 foot long, 75 trees is like 1 every 20 some odd feet. I mean, it's a lot of trees, it's a lot of money, but it's not like the opaque that we think it is. So.
Well, and just, if I can
Yeah.
interrupt you for a second. The opacity is not part of the,
Yeah, opacity is not.
That's opacity is not required, I get it, and there's already trees out there.
Correct. So we're talking additional trees.
Additional trees, right?
I just want to say that I agree with you, that I hope that the town board, that we've done what we can do, and that I hope the town board hears this and sees it and can help facilitate otherwise.
yeah, I mean, it's just one of those times we have a narrower path than what may be obvious to some, or maybe what we would. If no other discussion, though, let's go ahead and take a vote on the existing motion. All those in favor? Any opposed?
Over 2 tonight.
Huh? All right, and the motion carries. Let's see, 6 to 2. Can I have a motion to bring Mr. Pollard back?
I'd like to make a motion to bring Michael Pollard back.
All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? Chris Lee, did I see you vote?
Oh, no, sorry. I'd like to make a motion to take a 10-minute break if possible, or 5, maybe 3.5.
Can we do? All right, let's take a 5-minute recess, please, and then get right back at it. Thank you. All right, everybody. Let's go ahead. Hey, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, we are back from recess. Appreciate the opportunity. And if we can go ahead into 4D, let's consider a recommendation on R24-08. That's for 12936 South Church Street.
Neighborhood residential. This is an aerial view of the property in question. And a quick background, Stephen McLean purchased this property from the town of Huntersville earlier this year. It was previously town-owned right-of-way as part of the Veerhoff Drive bridge extension. As it was no longer needed, the town was able to sell off this portion of property. Though the rezoning is not consistent with the employment center land use character area that is currently located within, the rezoning does better align with the existing neighboring residential uses and provides a clear delineation between the industrial uses to the south of Veerhoff Drive and the residential units to the north of Veerhoff Drive. With that, staff is in support of the rezoning and just recommend that we update the future land use map from employment center to moderate density in order to be consistent with the surrounding residential properties within the vicinity. And if you guys have any questions, I can answer those.
Excellent, thank you. Questions for staff?
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, so let's see if I can draw here. Yeah, everything to the north of Veerhoff Drive here, this is all residential, which is consistent with what this proposal to rezone it to is, and everything below Veerhoff would be industrial.
Good. Other questions for staff? Did the applicant have anything? No.
Applicant is not here today, I believe. Are you?
No. Okay. Questions for legal, questions for the applicant?
I mean, question for the applicant that's not here, is there, I mean, is there a reason?
Yeah, so the applicant has stated that they want to rezone the property. I believe they plan on revising his current property, which is, let me draw here again. Currently owns this property right here. He plans on recombining and revising the line, so it'll be still two properties, and give it to his daughter to build a home on.
Mm-hmm.
While you got it up, does the property owner that fronts Old Statesville Road, that he would then share a property line with, does he have an opinion on this rezoning?
I have not been aware of one.
Hadn't voiced one, okay, thank you. Is that what that is? I don't know how that's zoned. I assumed it was residential like his, but can you enlighten us?
Are you speaking of this property right here?
Speaking of this one right here.
Okay, that is residential. That is a single family.
Okay, okay. So, yeah, okay. That's what I thought. Thank you.
You're talking about for access?
Oh, yeah, for the current property.
Yeah, so the owner has provided a survey showing that there's access using an existing driveway that he uses that runs through the neighboring property.
Yeah.
I have a motion.
Okay.
In considering the proposed rezoning of petition R24-08-12936 South Church Street, the planning board finds that the rezoning is consistent with the Town of Huntersville 2040 plan. The board recommends rezoning the property from corporate business to neighborhood residential. It is reasonable and in the public interest to rezone this property because the NR district will be consistent with the character and use adjacent to the subject property, and the entire property would have one zoning district.
I'll second.
She said snooze, you lose.
Well, yeah, you'd fail at this if this was like Jeopardy or something.
Yeah.
Let's go. Man, if you're gonna do it, do it.
I do
All
have
right.
a question also, though.
Well, hold on a second. So we have a motion. We have a second. Now you have a clarifying question for staff?
For staff and for Chris, I guess. The recommendation to update the future land, should that be in our motion, or is that something staff's going to do outside of?
It can be added, yes.
Yes, I'm fine with that modification.
Okay.
Don't make me reread anything.
Tracy,
Okay,
do you know what
so
that
we-
recommendation is?
No. Can you bring that slide back up and I will read it and ask that it be amended?
Sentence.
All right. If you'll accept modification.
Yes.
We'll also add that the, let's see, you said NR district consistent with adjacent development. And that we update the future land use map from employment center to moderate density in order to be consistent with the surrounding residential properties in the vicinity. Does that work with you?
Sure.
Mr. Holman, you good with that? Okay. All right, now we're on board. All right, so we have a sound motion now. We have a second. Do we have any discussion?
I mean, I just want to say, just, this is another general rezoning, right? But I feel like we're doing it, for one piece of property with an intent in mind, and that's kind of how I can get on board with it, as opposed to earlier discussions. I know there's going to be some, well, you did it this way, why wouldn't you do it this way on the other one? So I just wanted to make that statement.
Yeah, I'd agree. That's a great point. And that, I mean, this is a down zoning, so I'm a big fan. And that's why when Brian referenced that there was another one coming that was general, I didn't pick up on it originally when I was reviewing it because I already hit the check box. It's a down zoning, but it makes perfect sense. I've been following this one for a while, and I think the guy wants to add another residence to the property to support his family, and I think it's a perfect solution. So.
All right. So you're not going to dissent, whatever you'll be. You've been humorously salty tonight.
It was been a humorous comment.
All right. It would be out of character for you. For me, totally normal. All right. So if no other discussion, then let's go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. All right. 4E. Consider a recommendation on R24-05. That's Hilco Skilled Nursing Facility located at 13600 Reese Boulevard, and that's in the business park.
Good evening. I will be a little bit quicker tonight, just so I don't belabor the points from the public hearing. So the rezoning request is in the Huntersville Business Park, in between 77 and Reese Boulevard. It's adjacent to 77 there. They are proposing a congregate care facility or skilled nursing facility, and no TIA was required. Just some context, on the left is an aerial photo of the site. Lots of trees on the south side, an existing office building on the north. On the right-hand side, you see a context map of the site plan, along with the brown area there that includes floodplain, and the dotted green line is a town greenway proposed. So just highlights of the plan, a 72,000 square foot, 110 bed facility. They have significant floodplain along a substantial portion of the property, as was shown in the previous map. A note just to understand about the Huntersville Business Park, it was subdivided, invested a long time ago under the 1991 zoning ordinance. Therefore, many of the zoning requirements of today's rules do not apply in the Huntersville Business Park. However, that's for the uses that are allowed. So in this situation, a congregate care facility is not allowed in the old 1991 zoning ordinance. Therefore, in order to do that, they are rezoning the property to an updated zoning district, and the updated ordinance applies. So that's a significant thing to understand through this process. Another site plan element for this plan, in lieu of fronting a street like most skilled nursing facilities do, with the parking in the rear and the building up on the street, they can't do that again because of the floodplain. So they're doing an alternative frontage, and the driveway that goes up to the left-hand side of the property, in the middle of it is a big roundabout there. In the middle, they're doing an urban open space. So that's a significant portion of this site plan design as well. And just a quick highlight of the floodplain, again, showing how the building is really just completely bending to the will of the floodplain there, because it's a substantial element of this tract and parcel. So just a zoom in of the latest alternative frontage, where the front door is on the east there, then the roundabout for the driveway is on the west or in the center of the picture. And then you see how they're proposing to do seating, additional landscaping, artistic structures and shade elements to make a very nice, inviting area there on the frontage. And again, that would be an urban open space that the ordinance does allow frontage conditions for. Rezoning issues, there are several modifications. I won't go through them all, but they were in your staff report, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. But staff does recommend flexibility due to the difficult topography and the floodplain that exists on the site. The alternative frontage, we're still working with the applicant on just kind of getting a thumbs up and an okay from the adjacent property owner on just the maintenance and the upkeep of that urban open space that is half on their property. Building elevations, just some clarifying notes we're asking for. And for the greenway, the applicant actually has recently said that they would build the greenway along the frontage on Reese Boulevard, that green line that was going up ahead. So that is an update. 2040 plan, lots of policies that staff believes are being met through this application. And so mentioned the greenway being constructed, so policy LU 8.2, higher design standard, public good, that certainly goes in with that. And then also the employment center factor, this will produce 160 nursing jobs based on the applicant's information and employment data that they submitted as part of the application. So a lot of policies staff feels checks the boxes. So staff recommends approval with the conditions that we just get some updated clarifying notes and the minor site plan comments are addressed. And planning board is here to discuss, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you. Questions for staff?
I can't really tell, but that traffic circle, is that a building to the north, the left side of the drawing? I mean, how close does that get to that neighbor? Is that a building up there?
Yeah, you can probably see it better on the aerial photography. It's pretty close. Yeah, they front right on theirs on the opposite side to the north.
All right, and that building knows, I assume, that this is happening.
So yes, and that's kind of what staff is looking for, just to say, hey, you know, we're proposing to, or the applicant is proposing to upgrade that, and it's on their property. There is an easement along that driveway because it is a shared driveway from the property to the south and the property to the north. So there's language in there. So staff is just looking for just a kind of a thumbs up email to say, yep, we know it. It's all good. We're working with our neighbor to the south to make sure this all works out.
Right, could you show the modification list again on there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, I don't have questions yet. I'll wait till comments.
And I don't mean to not go into detail on them, but
Yeah.
it's late and it's in the staff report. And
Yeah, I've seen.
if you have any questions, I'll be happy to go through them. And there's a lot of flexibility needed based on the floodplain on the property.
Brad, while you have this one up, and we were talking about modifications, there's modification, of course, regarding water quality and stormwater runoff. And then in the engineering report, let's see, I'm staring right at it and can't find it now. What was the stormwater that was referenced in the engineering report? And then I believe it came from the applicant's plans that 40% was going to be treated, if you will. And the other 60% was going to be allowed direct runoff.
Correct.
Was that the same thing they were talking about in the engineering report? Because they didn't use those numbers, but they did make reference to a plan that, well, I guess they're not Louisa anymore, are they? But that's
Correct.
what I know him from. You know what I'm talking about.
Right, yeah, so I spoke with engineering staff on that just to try to get a layman's description of what was going on, and what's in the staff report is a summary of that discussion with.
Okay.
So yes, essentially it's only a certain amount is being treated because of the topography and the difficulty of getting it drained. And the engineering staff and Mecklenburg County staff actually worked with the applicant to come up to treat as much as feasibly possible. And again, going back to the Huntersville Business Park, hardly anybody, I don't think anybody does have water quality in the business park. They drain to the creek because they're all vested from our current ordinances. So in this instance, we're getting 40% treatment when if it was developed by right, we'd get 0 treatment. So that was a win, and so they worked and had that compromise, and therefore it is recommending that modification.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I was seeing or understand that basically one was referencing the other, but layman's terms, that's a good way. So thank you for doing it that way. The buffer modification, when I was looking at the site plan, one spot seemed to reference undisturbed with supplemental plantings. But then what is the buffer going to consist of, I guess, is an easier way to dive into it.
So it's going to be disturbed, yeah. So they're going to disturb it and replant, yeah.
So 20-foot planted buffer.
20 feet, and we've worked with them on having additional evergreens and maybe reducing the amount of deciduous to have a more fully opaque, because we want to try to make it opaque and meet the intent of the ordinance.
Mm-hmm.
We feel confident that with 20 feet and an additional evergreen ratio, that we can make that happen. There is we don't really count it, but I-77 does have existing vegetation.
Right.
But in the wintertime, it's a lot of evergreen, so you can see through it. And technically, if they ever widen 77, it'd be gone, you can't count it. So, but even in the 20 feet on the subject property, we're confident that we can get an opaque screen.
You talked about widening 77. That's funny.
Well, it was a doubtful connotation.
Yeah, no, it's
To be-
definitely was. And then, as far as in your presentation tonight, as it relates to materials, I saw an updated note versus the, so we've made progress on that even from last week.
Yeah, I think the progress specifically on the building elevations we were a little bit confused because there was sample elevations and there was the conceptual elevations, what they proposed to do, but they didn't really match. And so we got rid of the one, so we've just got the concept elevations now and a little bit of clarifying. But what staff is specifically looking for is taking verbiage and saying, in the rezoning notes, where all the modifications are, where all the where the formalized conditions are, putting a note there to say, this is specifically what we're gonna do, see the concept plan, we're gonna have vertical siding, we're gonna have brick, we're gonna have stone, and we're not gonna have kind of the standard architectural treatment of the skilled nursing facility that you sometimes see with siding that just kind of looks like a house.
Right.
This is the conceptual elevations are very modern, very nice, and raising that standard level of design. So staff is just trying to take that specific element and formalize it to make sure that doesn't change through the construction process.
Are you excited that you get to talk about excellence in design again?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes, that's it.
This is your jam, dude. All right. All right, good.
Probably see that every single application that comes in.
Yeah,
We'll talk about it.
There you go. More questions for staff? Yep.
Just one. In light of more recent circumstances, there was a floodplain. Was that 100-year, 500-year, 1,000-year? What's the floodplain?
I think it was 100.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, sir.
given us 100 years, any actions taken from a design standpoint to ensure that if a 100-year flood does occur, that it does not cause significant hardship for those people in the building?
So they're not permitted to have any kind of construction in any floodplain.
Oh, no, I understand that, but.
If it was higher than that, Mecklenburg County staff will be reviewing that. They administer our floodplain and stormwater ordinance for us. So that is something that's outside our purview, and our engineers help take care of that. So I don't have an answer for that, but I can certainly find out.
If it were 500-year, I wouldn't even ask the question, but at 100-year and the more recent circumstances, it's a fair question to ask.
Sure. Thank you. Well, I'll look into that.
I got one quick one, I guess. The modification on the I-77 buffer, I'm supposing it's up here in the top right corner of this diagram, because you got 50 feet down to 20 feet, right?
Correct.
And is that one little triangle corner in the top that's right here, is that existing vegetation that's being left alone?
Yes, I believe that's in the floodplain.
Okay. And then, do we still have 50 feet to the edge of the building, at least, you think?
50 feet to the edge of the building.
I was thinking from a residential point of view, if you're, how far are you actually, is your bedroom actually from the 77 right away?
Oh, on the north side.
Oh.
So.
Did I draw my arrow in the wrong place?
Building, that's the other building.
Oh, that's the other building, okay.
That's the other building.
You're talking about
So you're right.
this distance. Yes.
Oh, that's 77 over there, okay.
So it's 20 feet of buffer. I'd estimate 24 foot of driveway and another maybe 5 feet. So 55 feet,
Okay.
perhaps,
Okay.
from the building.
Ooh, I was misoriented, okay.
Guesstimate.
That's the only thing I had.
I'm curious, so if the Department of Transportation were building a structure, what's the sound attenuation requirements for them in terms of having housing structures adjacent to their properties?
I have not heard of that. I do not know.
Well, there are certain areas that if you have like proximity to an interstate, DOT will tend to build sound attenuation barriers to ensure that there is no noise there.
So if the DOT project were to be commenced in this area, they have to do a sound study, not the other way around.
Right.
So that's why you see the introduction of sound walls up and down I-77 with the introduction of the toll lanes.
We've had lots of development along 77, and there's never been any requirements for any kind of sound barriers.
I have houses close enough to get there. This is close.
Again, if DOT were to widen or do another project in here, they would have to do a sound study, and they may have to put a sound barrier here. This depends on what the results of that. Probably very likely.
Other questions for staff? Okay, did the applicant have a presentation?
They have one. It's up to you.
You can come up and do an abbreviated version if you want, whatever you need.
We'll enter it into the record. I'm Robert Irvin, Urban Law Group. Quickly, let's get to what I want to see. Here's an overall view of the concept design of the building. And I want to bring attention here to the example of the exterior materials. This is a note that's on the rezoning plans right now. It's not in the rezoning notes specifically, but it will be. We are going to put it in the rezoning notes, but this just commits to the types of materials that we're going to use, and it's going to match the scheme and design of the renderings. Then here's a color view of what that urban open space is going to be, and in the middle you can see the note that accompanies that. And then finally, or I guess if you want to look at this real quick, this I-77 buffer, this is the 20-foot landscape buffer that's going to go in between the building and I-77. And so if you see at the top, that's the buffer at full mature height. And so it will block I-77, and this building's only one story. The buildings on either side are 30, 40 feet, so it's definitely less than the surrounding buildings. Finally, I think this is some of the most important information. It is in an employment center, and this facility is going to create 160 full-time, part-time PRN jobs. And according to Huntersville Health and Rehab data, the town's operating at 90 to 99% capacity for licensed nursing home beds. And there's going to be additional capacity required with the new hospital coming in. Huntersville continues to grow. The population's aging. This is absolutely needed in the area. There's also some economic benefits to bring this skilled nursing facility. There's over 30+ million in direct and indirect benefits from construction, and then property taxes are estimated around $68,000 per year. And with that, I think that about covers it. We have our team here. We have Emily Brewer from Stimmel, and we have Jonathan Rogers from Principal LTC to answer any questions, and I'm here to answer questions too. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, questions for the applicant? Scott?
I know Brian, or Brad touched on it. The roundabout, where do we stand, or where do you stand with the?
So we've reached out to the neighbors. We just haven't heard confirmation from them, but there is already a cross-access easement agreement, and so that agreement mentions that there can be improvements to the urban open space and that maintenance will be shared. We just need to get confirmation from them and flesh out that maintenance plan.
Is that what reasonable approval of adjoining owner means?
Yes.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant? No? Okay. I'll take a motion.
I'll make a motion. In considering the proposed rezone application R2405 Hillco Skilled Nursing Facility, the Planning Board recommends approval with the following conditions. 1, written acknowledgement from the adjacent property owner is received, allowing the upfit of the driveway roundabout into an urban open space. And a conditional note is added to the rezoning notes formalizing the commitment to its design. 2, a rezoning note added for formalizing commitment to the construction of the concept elevations. 3, minor site plan comments from staff are addressed prior to the final approval. With the conditions met, the plan will be consistent with the 2040 Huntersville Community Plan and specifically policies LU 1.1, LU 5, LU 6.1, EOS 3.1, and LU 8.2. It is reasonable and in the public interest to approve the rezoning plan because it further diversifies the uses within the Huntersville Business Park, provides approximately 160 high-paying medical jobs for the community, provides Huntersville residents another option to remain in Huntersville as they age, preserves 84% of the specimen trees, adds significantly to the tax base with little demand on public services, and contributes to the public good of the town by participating in the construction of a town greenway.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Discussion. Mr. Hensley.
I'll make it quick. I think it's a great use for the property. I think it's something the community needs. My hats off to the staff for working with the applicant. It sounds like it's a challenging site. Again, I've said it before, I think with challenging sites and the few developable sites we have left, we need to show some creativity and sometimes some flexibility without, still demanding good quality development. So Brad, thank you, and Brian for the work you guys have done.
I just think it's very needed. I think it's great that it's coming to Huntersville. That's it.
I think this kind of exemplifies also the complementary nature of various types of services and business. You're right around the corner from a hospital. You know, you can't get a better location than that, and that's really the kind of thing that we want to see from a planning board standpoint.
I'll second all that and add that I'm a user of the business park. I've ridden my little bicycle around there for the last 20 years, and I've watched the progress take place in there. And as it's currently zoned, we need to look at these rezonings because what it's zoned for right now maybe not the best uses, and we've seen that with the addition of apartments and other types of building types going in there. So I think it's great that we can actually update the code requirements by giving up the vesting rights from 1991. That gives us a lot of leeway and a lot of more excellent designs, and you can see that progress as you see newer buildings come through the business park. So I think that's a great idea. Also like to second that A+ job done on the modifications. They totally make sense. They contribute to both the site itself and the surrounding area. And I'd also point out that restricting the uses to healthcare institutions only was another good call. So I'll be supporting this.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great use for that site. I think it fits in with the business park very well. I think it is a tough site to work on, and they did a great job with putting the building. I know the parking's in the front, but that's so typical for the business park, and it fits in very nicely. And the things you added, the stormwater, in addition to the by right situation with that. And the greenway. I mean, the greenway is awesome. You want to get that constructed.
All right, if no other discussion, we can go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. That wraps up our agenda items for this evening. We have no other business, which means I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, nice job tonight.